There's a famous quote that goes, "Those who do not understand history are doomed to repeat it," and we are about to find out exactly what that means. I'm Erin, I'm Queen Bee Tarot. Welcome back. I've got detailed horoscopes for all 12 zodiac signs. Timestamps and chapters are below, so you can scroll through the different topics I'm going to cover. We're looking at Pluto moving into Aquarius for good this time, and what that's meant over the last couple thousand years in regards to its effect on humanity collectively and personally. We've got a very turbulent full moon coming up on November 15th, and at the exact time we have a full moon, Saturn goes direct, but Mercury is about to go retrograde. Are you ready? Let's jump in. So there's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of stuff happening on the global forum and the global scale. And a lot of those changes are not necessarily comfortable. A lot of people, especially educated people, are shaking their heads going, WTF? How could these things even happen? But that's exactly where that quote comes in. Those who do not understand, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. And that's one of the biggest failings in this age of technology, in this age of overwhelming access to information. No matter what you want to look up, you can hop on your phone, you can hop on a computer, tap into the internet, and find out pretty much anything you want. But the issue happening here is that for every piece of valid, genuine information, there's overwhelmingly way more misinformation. There's gossip, there's hearsay, there's genuine manipulations of fake news and infusions of very confusing things that have led to the disinformation of humanity. And especially in North America, where there's very much so an echo chamber, where American citizens do not have the same sort of access to differing perspectives because the media is owned by a very small group of people. Therefore, a lot of what is being pumped into people's awareness is snippets and not the full picture. So, moving forwards, what we have is a very interesting situation because as we were collectively anticipating Pluto moving into Aquarius, the associations of Aquarius are very humanitarian. It is looking out for the little guy. It's advocating for the underdog. And the collective and personal hope of this planetary transit was to advance the collective. The idea was that we were all looking forward to this. We were all hoping for how Pluto moving into Aquarius would advance the interests of the average person and hopefully bring people who have been struggling up into an elevated, more thriving opportunity to succeed and find what they need. So it does feel like in a lot of ways we are moving backwards. What's really interesting is that Pluto has just finished approximately 20 years in the sign of Capricorn. And before Pluto was discovered, Capricorn and Aquarius were both ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is the most heavy, dense planet in our solar system. It is associated with the Greek god Kronos, which is time. And so even though Pluto has finished its transit through Capricorn and is moving into Aquarius, the consistent theme in both those zodiac signs is our relationship with time. And here's where I want to jump in and tell you about what it meant for Pluto to move into Aquarius over the last 2,000 years or more. Because in approximately the year 450 BC or BCE, the study of astrology had been previously, up until that point, based on mundane events. So to refer to mundane events means how the astrology of the time would affect political things, the success or the failures of countries and things like that, right? And so what happened in approximately the year 450 BC is that astrology took a new twist. And what people at that time were starting to do was take all of astrology that had been developed so far and translate into personal relevance. So instead of being mundane, it became personal astrology. Around the year 450 BC, the first birth charts were created. So there was a massive transition at that time. Pluto had just moved into Aquarius, and that's where we see this transition of doing things very officially and by the book and stepping into, hey, can we do things different? Can we step out of the box? Can we be more advanced and futuristic with all that we have mastered and learned so far? Pluto represents power and control. It is shadow work. It is a planet on the furthest reaches of our solar system. It is known to be ice cold in ways that, temperature gauges can almost not measure, right? Absolute zero and whatnot. And so what we have here is that Pluto's themes of power and control have moved out of Capricorn, which supports the patriarchy, it supports the system, the way things have always been. It's very status quo when the power is in Capricorn. So now that Pluto representing power is moving into Aquarius on November 19th, what we have is a hint that the power is moving to the people. What's really interesting about the Orange Cheetos presidential campaign is that even though he's a billionaire who has no idea what it means to go without one day in his life, part of his campaign, a huge part of his campaign, was saying that he was going to benefit the people who have the lowest status in society. He was saying that he was advocating for the workers, the people who are downtrodden, and basically that really touched a nerve. I think a lot of people didn't quite fully grasp how, disenfranchised the average American person is. There was a really interesting song done by Sublime. It's called April 26, 1992, and it is a song about the Rodney King riots, where in LA people completely lost their SHIT because Rodney King was beaten by a bunch of cops, and it was filmed and broadcast on live TV. So people just lost it, and there was massive, massive, massive rioting. But what's interesting in the lyrics of the song written by Sublime is that there's this one particular part where he says, they said it was for the black man, they said it was for the Mexican and not for the white man, but if you listen to the people, it's about coming up and staying on top. It's about how everybody, things are getting harder and harder and harder every year. He sings about watching a woman go into a store with her children during the riots, and she came out with Pampers. Like, that's all she wanted was diapers, right? So that is the cultural experience happening right now in the US. And so the American people wanted somebody that they felt were going to advocate for them. But this is where misinformation comes in. Donald Trump in no way, shape, or form actually stands for the American people. Like, not even close. But misinformation, Russian interference, social media that is not backed in, or not based in fact, but more based in hearsay. The actual ability for the average American person to access information that they need was muddied. It was not clear. And so a very surprising outcome happened in which this person has become elected president, and anyone who is educated sees impending disaster. This is terrifying for the average person. But if we tap back into Pluto's transits in the last couple thousand years, there's a lot of times that we have seen this exact same thing happen in the history of humankind. One of those examples, a lot of people talk about how Pluto moving into Aquarius is a Pluto return for the USA. So anytime a planet returns to the place it started when you were born, it is called a return. And so Pluto, because it takes 248 years to go full circle in the zodiac, that's approximately how old the United States is. Fun fact, the average empire only lasts 250 years before approaching some sort of major crisis or typically collapse. So it's really interesting kind of seeing all these different threads come together. Now, when the USA was created, a lot of people create a birth chart for the USA in 1776, because that's when the Declaration of Independence was written. However, it wasn't until approximately 1778 that the 13 colonies were established, the three forms, or the three branches of the American government: judicial, presidential, and what do you call the House and the Senate? Oof. Now my American history has gone out the window. Anyway, there's three branches to the American government, and that form of the USA is talked about by a lot of scholars as far as the real birth of the US. So So 1776, Pluto was still in Capricorn, but in 1778, when the 13 colonies and the 3 branches of the government were established in the way that we know today, that was when Pluto was in Aquarius. What's really interesting is that the only reason that the American colonies were able to successfully break off from England, their original funding people that sent them over to the US, they broke off, they created independence, and the only way that they were able to do that was that they enlisted the help of the French. Here's where things get really interesting, because a lot of the things that happen when Pluto moves into Aquarius, people don't quite understand what the long-term effect is going to be. So when France jumped into the American Revolution and helped them win against England, at the exact same time, the French Revolution was happening back home in France. And so even though that they had sent a whole bunch of people over to help, Americans win their war of independence, what was happening back home in France was there was a French Revolution, and part of the revolution, part of why the French monarchy fell apart, was because the citizens there were starving and they were pissed off that France had bankrolled this war that was thousands of miles away. So we had disgruntled citizens tear apart the monarchy at that time, and it completely reshaped European politics moving forwards. And there's a lot of ways, if we go back in history, the shift in 450 BC, where astrology went from being mundane to personal. In approximately the year 800, paper was invented by the Chinese. Another thing that happened in 1268, I believe it was, all of these things, 800 AD and then 1268 AD, those were both Pluto and Aquarius times. When paper was invented in approximately 800, that revolutionized humans' ability to record information and eventually publish it for mass consumption. So that completely revolutionized how we notate and share information. When in 1268, a lot of different things happened, but one of those things is it was the first recorded, documented time in which gunpowder was invented. And if we think about how guns completely changed humanity, I mean, you can go back to this point where Pluto was in Aquarius, gunpowder was invented. Nobody had any idea how that was going to affect humanity moving forwards, right? So a lot of these advancements were done because people were like, oh, this is a really cool idea, not having any idea what it was going to look like down the road and how it could potentially lead to disaster later on. Another time was in, now I forget, I should have taken more notes, but there was another time in which Europe, Pluto was in Aquarius, and something happened where they made Christianity legal. And before that, Christianity was very illegal. And what happened was that as they made Christianity legal and Christians were able to share their faith and practice their faith without interference, the rise of Christianity led to the vilification of astrology and the persecution of pagan peoples, indigenous peoples, and people who practiced anything other than Christianity. So what we see in a lot of these situations is that there's almost like a tipping of the scale, that one part of human experience is elevated or strengthened, but consequently, another half of the human experience is destabilized, leading to chaos, leading to change. So with Pluto in Aquarius coming up, we can count on humanity changing in massive, massive, drastic ways. We can count on a change in perception around faith and faith-based practices. We can count on a change in the relationships between the little guy and the powers that be. And we can count on information and collective understanding being relatively muddied until we reach a point of clarity. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this plays out, but Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for 20 solid years. It won't start dipping into Pisces until the end of 2043, the beginning of 2044. This is going to be a while. We're going to be living through these themes for quite a bit. So coming back to, I'm covering a 2-week period, November 10th through November 23rd. And as we start this period, Sunday, November 10th, Venus is at the final degrees of Sagittarius. Now, the prior 2 weeks, we were starting to get a pep talk. We're starting to get high vibes. You know, yeah, we're in the middle of Scorpio season, which is typically very heavy, very serious, very emotional. But Venus had moved into Sagittarius. So the planet of love, trust, relationships, comfort, abundance had moved into cheerful, positive, optimistic Sagittarius. Things were starting to feel good. And a few days ago, Mercury moved into Sagittarius. Mercury is how we think, how we speak, our mental space. So with Mercury moving into happy-go-lucky Sagittarius as well, we were high vibing, right? Nobody saw this coming. Well, a lot of astrologers saw this coming. But anyway, that's the thing. Studying the charts of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump before the election, both of them looked like potential winners. If you really split hairs and look at the details, Donald Trump had slightly more positive planetary transits than Kamala, but honestly, it was really, really hard to pick a clear winner at that time, and those are the results that we had. It was almost 50-50 straight down the middle. So what we have today, November 10th, is that Venus is at the final degrees of Sagittarius. So any planet that is at the final degrees of a sign brings an energy of urgency. And Venus at the end of Sagittarius brings urgency to the question, is there anything to be happy about? Is there anything to be optimistic about? Please, God, tell me that there's hope, right? I got nothing, guys. I'm really sorry. Tomorrow, November 11th, Venus moves into Capricorn, which means that the planet of love, trust, and comfort moves into very serious earth sign Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the very one that Pluto is making its way out of. So there is a sense that even though we thought we were going to escape the clutches of the patriarchy, haha, just kidding, no. So there's a very serious, very heavy vibe. All of the happy-go-lucky optimism that had kind of built up over the last week or so has now come crashing to the ground. And that is what things look like for the next 2 weeks. It's serious, it's heavy, but we are also encouraged to embrace this up and coming serious energy and use it to establish some sort of a practical plan, whether it be pushing against the patriarchy, whether it be bringing real information to the population. Everybody's going to have a different strategy. Everybody's going to have a different way to approach self-care and supporting sanity at this point, right? So at the same time Venus moves into Capricorn, the sun forms a very challenging angle to Jupiter. The sun represents our concept of self, character development, where we stand in our lives, our identity, our personality. And when it forms a really challenging angle to Jupiter tomorrow on Monday, Jupiter is ruled by Sagittarius. And so there's a sense of, I have no idea how to find hope in this very serious time. Tuesday, the moon moves into Aries. There's so starting Tuesday, November 12th, on an emotional level, we are going to be wanting to fight back. And if you study the multiple stages of grief, often first couple of stages are disbelief, shock, depression, something like that, but then the tide turns. And when the tide turns and depression turns into anger, anger is motivating. Anger will get us up out of a slump and inspire action of some sort. Now, whether or not that action that is inspired is healthy or in our highest good, that's a whole nother story entirely. Because when the moon is in Aries, Aries is associated with the god of war, which means that on an emotional level, we are going to be wanting to fight back, but not exactly sure where and how to channel that energy. So at that time, if you feel really overwhelmed right now, if you feel really overwhelmed, one of the best strategies is to move your physical body, because we are energetic beings in a physical vessel, and the experiences we have, whether it be mental experiences, emotional or spiritual, if we start to feel overwhelmed and heavy and dense, stressed out, clenching our muscles, that sort of thing, then the best thing we can do is shake off that excess energy, either through physical activity, dance, music, singing, whatever is within your physical abilities. If you can't get up and dance, you can squeeze and release, right? Or shake the shoulders, roll the shoulders. So yeah, if you feel overwhelmed, I strongly recommend talk to a friend, go for a walk, do the hokey pokey, anything at all. Because we have to get these energies moving through us. It is never healthy to let them sit and get stagnant. Also happening on Tuesday, November 12th, Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn. Now, Mercury is still in Sagittarius, wanting to be hopeful, wanting to be optimistic, wanting to approach our situation with curiosity. But when it forms a challenging square, which is a 90-degree angle to Saturn, Captain Sirius, it does feel like an ongoing reality check. It does feel like an ongoing experience of WTF, I've got nothing. I don't know what to say. Shock and disbelief, right? And underneath that, despair. So Thursday, November 14th, the moon moves into Taurus, helping us release that kind of fight or flight energy, which is awesome. But again, Venus forms a challenging angle to Mars, showing that when it comes to manifesting love, trust, and comfort, not really hitting on a path of action yet, right? So definitely an energy of kind of circling and not really having any idea what to do or how to cope. Friday, November 15th, Saturn goes direct at the exact same time as we have a very volatile full moon. I'm going to tell you about it. So Saturn's been retrograde for a few months, happens every year, not really a big thing. But moving direct simply means that the process of establishing a new order, the process of establishing, for example, a new form of government, or people in the government, those things are going to be moving forwards. And if you follow the news, if you follow social media, immediately after getting elected, Trump basically goes, I'm going to deport all the Latinos that are undocumented, all the ones that literally just voted for him. He's talking about violence. He's talking about dragging people through the streets and murdering them. He's talking about mass deportations, Project 2025. Like, shit's about to get serious in a really, really ugly way. And by the full moon, I could see these plans not only being published for the world to see, but I could totally see him starting to come up with the staff that he wants and starting to take action months before he's even taking office. Like, things are getting going. And the full moon, the sun is in Scorpio, the moon is in Taurus, and the moon is going to be exactly conjunct Uranus. Now, Uranus is the planet in our solar system that is kind of like a wrecking ball. Uranus is change, transformation, upheaval. At its best, it can be evolution. At its worst, it is total crisis breakdowns, but ultimately, hopefully, breakthroughs. So this full moon conjunct Taurus is, I'm worried. I'm worried about riots. I'm worried about violence. I'm worried about a lot of very, very upset, angry people. And even the party that won is still spouting hate, still spouting anger. It seems like winning didn't even make them happy. So I would say avoid dangerous people, avoid dangerous situations, avoid conflict, avoid anything that is potentially unsafe or not in your highest good, either on or around Friday, the November 15th. Just be safe, you guys. Don't get into any direct confrontations with anyone right now. It is just not a good idea. And then moving into the following week, Saturday, November 16th, the moon moves into Gemini. And then the moon joins Jupiter on Sunday, opposing Mercury. So the weekend after the full moon definitely has the energy of WTF, kind of energetic hangover, pause, reflect, assess our options, see where we stand. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And then Monday, November 18th, Mercury opposes Jupiter and the sun forms a trine to Venus. So here's what's interesting is on November 18th, it's possible there's going to be some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, some hope, some glimmer of light in this time of darkness. And the moon moves into Cancer, indicating a more maternal, compassionate energy, starting to infuse things, which is going to be a welcome change from this very dominating, overbearing, patriarchal energy that we've been struggling with for the last couple weeks. Tuesday, November 19th, Pluto moves into Aquarius. So it's the last time. It's not going to go back to Capricorn for another 248 years. And we embark on a new chapter that's going to last 20 years. The beginning process of Pluto moving into Aquarius, there's always a sense that when a planet first moves into a sign, it's almost like kindergarten when it comes to what that zodiac sign represents. There is a sense that when Pluto first moves into Aquarius, and quite possibly over the next calendar year, because that is going to be just the very beginning of Aquarius, it's possible during that time that any efforts put forward in the realm of Aquarius themes are going to be very childlike, punitive, not well thought out, like I said, kind of kindergarten representations of what Aquarius could represent. When a planet moves through a sign, there's 30 degrees that they move through, and the very beginning degrees only represent kind of kindergarten representations of that vibe. It's not until a planet reaches kind of the end of a sign that we start to approach mastery, conceptual understanding, and completion. So it's going to be an interesting journey. Wednesday, November 20th, the moon moves into Leo, opposing Pluto. So the moon's going to be at the beginning of Leo, Pluto's at the beginning of Aquarius, and the moon joins Mars. Wednesday, November 20th, there is quite likely going to be some sort of announcement from the Republican Party or from the Orange Cheeto himself, the convicted felon, the rapist, that guy, yeah. Some sort of announcement in which he announces pride. He says really, really, really egotistical, not well thought out things, and any hope that had been building before that is likely to come crashing to the ground. It does feel like a roller coaster over the next little bit, with the majority of the energy over the next 2 weeks feeling quite serious and heavy. There will be a couple of moments where it's like, oh, maybe there's hope. So Thursday, November 21st, the sun moves into Sagittarius. So with the sun, that means that on the 20th, when we have this opposition, moon opposite Pluto, moon conjunct Mars, the sun is at the final degrees of Scorpio. That's what makes Wednesday, November 20th really, really volatile as far as potentially awful, hurtful, hateful things being said by this newly elected incumbent. Because with the sun being at the final degrees of Scorpio, again, we have that sense of urgency. And Scorpio is profoundly dark. It is represented by three figures. We've got the scorpion, the eagle, and the phoenix. And even though what we would like to see with the sun at the end degrees of Scorpio, we would like to see some level of mastery or understanding, the combination of that urgent vibe is more likely to activate the stinging of the scorpion instead of the elevated perspective of the eagle or the transformational experience of the phoenix. Any of these planetary positions and ingresses, they don't exist by themselves. We really have to look at the bigger picture. So the sun at the end of Scorpio combined with the moon conjunct Mars means emotional, egotistical action, opposing Pluto, either expressing darkness, expressing power and control, anything along those lines, right? And then Friday, November 22nd, the moon moves into Virgo, so it's a bit of... it's the realization of like, okay, if I can't save everyone and I can't change the tides that are happening, I cannot change how things are going collectively or globally. Moon in Virgo on Friday, November 22nd is kind of returning to, okay, what can I do to just practice self-care? What can I do to support my own sanity, my own health, my own well-being? And how can I look at those details, make some sort of a plan, and hopefully soon take action on that plan in a way that helps me feel like I really am looking after my health, my wellness, and my sanity. And on that day, with that moon and Virgo influence, Venus forms a really supportive angle to Saturn. So that means as far as a path towards love, a path towards trust and comfort and safety might somehow start to become clear. So somewhere around, I don't know, man, a lot of what I'm doing here with astrology is very left-brained. It's very logical. It's very by the books. It's very by decades of study that I have. But of course, I am a psychic and I'm a clairvoyant. And so I don't know, man. When I look at November 20th, Wednesday, with this moon opposite Pluto business, man, I just feel like some sort of surprise is coming through. Some sort of shock, some sort of situation in which maybe we will find that glimmer of hope. Maybe we will have some sort of glimpse of a pathway towards actually looking out for the little guy. We'll see. Definitely, I'm going to mark that one on my calendar. I'm very, very curious because I don't know, as I look at this list of all these transits, my mind's eye is just like, this day is important. It is the first day of Pluto being fully in Aquarius. Something interesting is going to happen that day. We will have to see. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up 4 detailed horoscopes for all 12 zodiac signs. These are written for rising signs. I know a lot of people don't know their rising sign. That is totally fine. If you read a horoscope in the newspaper or online, even though it says, oh, if your sun is in Virgo or your sun is in Scorpio, whatever it is, I'm going to tell you a secret. Every single one of those horoscopes is actually written for rising signs. So don't worry. If you don't know your rising sign, just watch the video for your sun sign. But if you know both, watch both for extra insight for sure. We are covering right now. So this is the chart for the full moon. I just want to give you a little heads up of what we're dealing with here. Full moon in Scorpio means that the sun is full moon in Taurus means that the sun is in Scorpio, forming an exact opposition to the moon in Taurus. But see how the moon is exactly conjunct Uranus? And that means that something is going to come to a head when it comes to either crisis, change, transition, upheaval. Could get wild. And at the exact same time, Pluto is still locked into an opposition with Mars. Pluto opposite Mars is also a very volatile influence because Pluto represents power and control. Mars represents taking action. And because Mars is currently in Leo, Leo is me first. I want to make sure that my interests are taken care of. And anyone who really has their eyes open knows that the convicted felon only wanted to be president so that he doesn't go to jail. It is a money-making thing. It's getting out of legal consequences. He has zero interest in actually helping the American people. And that is what's most heartbreaking about this whole situation. I had higher hopes. I really did. I thought that humanity was better than that. And like I said, one of the hardest things is that it's hard to be angry when, even though the convicted felon had malicious intent, millions of people that voted for him were simply ignorant and uninformed and not fully realizing the consequences of their actions. And so there is a famous quote about not assigning malicious intent when ignorance more likely applies, right? Okay, so we are looking at Venus moving into Capricorn, Saturn direct, full moon, Pluto in Aquarius. There's lots to cover. I am going to get set up and I'll see you in 2 seconds. All right, welcome back. We're going to get into the detailed horoscopes for all 12 zodiac signs, starting with Aries, of course, the first sign in the zodiac. So Aries sun and Aries rising, welcome to your horoscopes. Hope you guys are doing okay out there. One of the first things that happens is Monday, November 11th, Venus moves into Capricorn. Now, before it does, Venus is going to be finishing up in the zodiac sign Sagittarius, tickling the very end degrees of your 9th house. Now, what happens when Venus moves out of Sagittarius from your 9th house into Capricorn, your 10th house, it's going to cross a very important point in your chart, a cardinal point known as the midheaven. And it's kind of like due north on a compass. It has a strong association with the path that you're walking, the things that you want to manifest, and specific references to turning what you know into a career, or finding success through either education or experience. So with Venus, that brings sweetness, abundance, and comfort to everything that it touches. For Venus to cross this very important top point in your chart indicates that there's going to be some blessing, some sort of breakthrough, some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Where you like receive money. Windfall. That's the word. Okay, so there's going to be some sort of windfall associated with either training that you have just finished or training that is just now becoming useful no matter how long ago you finished it. Some sort of information, some sort of experience, whether it be travel or professional studies or a degree, something like that. We see the planet of sweetness and abundance move from that place of knowledge into the place of practice. And so there's an indication here that if you take what you know, or you take your experience, your training, your education, and put it into practice, there's a very high likelihood of being able to find almost immediate success in whatever format you choose to channel it. So that's actually a huge blessing. And so the thing is, though, right before it moves into Capricorn, it is going to bring that sense of urgency to your 9th house. So you might feel this wave of, I have a degree, how come I never use it? Or I don't know why I'm stuck in this dead-end job, I would really love a change. So one of the biggest things it's going to do over this weekend is kind of tickle your fancy when it comes to your desire for change or breakthroughs or simply just doing better for yourself. So it might feel like stress at first, like, but as soon as it moves into Capricorn, there's this relief, this calm that comes through as far as like, man, I don't know why I didn't ever think of that, or I don't know why I didn't do this sooner, or I'm really glad to finally take action on this now. So lots of blessings in your career life, especially if you're integrating new training or starting some sort of new position. On Tuesday, Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn, which means that even if you've got these bright ideas, this inspiration, this new hope, this new joy, by Tuesday, you might actually feel kind of heavy and serious when it comes to, okay, that was a great idea, but kind of like, how do I put this into practice? How do I make this work? What are going to be the practical steps to pull this off? The good thing about Mercury square Saturn is that it is a perfect influence when it comes to focusing on details, coming up with a plan, really establishing what are my next best steps in order to achieve this dream or this goal that I have. With Mercury in your 9th house, you are still very much tapped into whatever inspiration that was that's coming through right now. But with Saturn being in your 12th house, it still may feel foggy or fuzzy as far as how things are going to turn out moving forwards. But the long and the short of it is that inspiration is helping you take flight. And even if you don't know how things are going to turn out far down the road, we have a clear indication that momentum is the best choice of action. And then when Saturn moves direct on Friday, November 15th in your 12th house, there is a sense of like, oh my God, actually I can see this. I can see this coming through or playing out in the way that I want. So that's going to be awesome. Have patience with yourself this week. Definitely momentum is the best possible choice. Take action, move forwards, onwards and upwards, right? And then at the same time Saturn goes direct, we have a full moon. This full moon has very volatile energy. For some of you, it may mean that you're so inspired by what you learned during the week that maybe around the full moon you choose to quit your job, or you announce on some level the plans that you have in mind, making them public, either to just the people you know, or maybe even a wider audience. Now, the full moon is activating your 8th and 2nd houses. So the biggest theme for you guys is not just wasting your life in some sort of a dead-end situation, but really striving to be valued and respected and paid well for your time, your energy, your expertise. The more that you value yourself and everything that you bring to the table, the more that you're going to find other people that really reflect that value and buy into whatever it is that you're offering. So definitely this first week from November 10th to November 16th, seeing the best in yourself and really, really shooting for the stars is going to be the highest path of action for you guys. And then moving into the second week that we're covering, Mercury forms in opposition to Jupiter on Monday, November 18th. And it's going to activate your 9th and 3rd houses. So it could be one of those things where you're like, okay, I've got the training, I've got the dream, where do I go? Because Mercury in your 9th house is like, okay, I've mastered this training, I've mastered this education or this experience. But Jupiter in the 3rd house is, how can I expand the connections I have, personal and professional, in order to achieve these goals, in order to network with new opportunities or crowdsource to be able to achieve this dream. So it is going to become apparent on or around the 18th that in order to achieve these goals or these dreams that you have in mind, you're going to have to hustle. You're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to reach out, either plans published or job applications submitted or something along those lines. But that's okay. You're going to have that inspiration. You're going to have that energy, and hopefully you're going to have that momentum already rolling. Also on Monday, November 18th, the Sun forms a really supportive angle to Venus, the planet of trust, abundance, and comfort. So again, what we see is this reminder just coming through over and over for you guys that if you can really, really, really lock in to your own sense of self-worth with confidence, with strength, and with remembering everything you've been through, with remembering everything that it took for you to get where you are, no longer embarking or no longer engaging on any self-deprecating behavior, really flipping the switch on that one and speaking highly of yourself, promoting yourself, selling what it is that you have to offer so that people really buy in. The best way to sell yourself or a product or an idea is to come in with like full confidence, right? And so the Dunning-Kruger effect is a very challenging influence because it's been scientifically proven the smarter you are, the more likely you are to be self-deprecating. And the less intelligent or informed you are, the more likely it is you're going to be confident, like super confident. So if you've got a low opinion of yourself, I challenge you to put that into perspective. There's some unbelievably confident people out there that have only a couple of brain cells and they're about to run the country. So you should be more confident in yourself. 1,000% more confident in yourself, what you have to offer, and sell that shit. Pluto moves into Aquarius on Tuesday, November 19th. And so that means that Pluto is going to be spending the next 20 years in your 11th house. The 11th house is ruled by Aquarius. It is the global community. It is advocating for the underdog, working in a way that is beneficial to yourself, the people around you, elevating human experience, anything along those lines. It could be social work, it could be art, it could be music, it could simply just be being a decent human being, right? But over the next 20 years, you can expect that your realm of influence, the power that you personally hold, is going to take a greater form in a way that is not just punching in and out of a time clock, but actually feeling like you're making a difference, actually feeling like you're channeling your God-given gifts or making a difference here on this planet. So big, big shift coming through for you guys. And of course, these things take baby steps, right? Very rarely is it like, oh, I'm gonna wake up one day and be a different person. It doesn't work like that. But what we're seeing for you guys is a huge transition in which you start to really lock into your self-worth, and that's gonna change everything in your life. And then when the sun moves into Sagittarius on November 21st, it's going to activate your 9th house. So again, there's going to be hopeful energy, positive energy, as far as believing in yourself and believing in your dreams. So good luck out there, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And please, by all means, if you really liked your horoscope, give me a like, give me a thumbs up, share comments below. And if you share the video, more people get to see it, which would be amazing. Mwah! Take care out there, and I will see you next time. Bye. Taurus Sun and Taurus Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We've got a lot going on, and there's going to be a full moon in your sign on November 15th. It's going to be a wild ride. So the first thing that happens today, no, Monday actually, is that Venus moves into Capricorn. So what that means today on Sunday is that Venus is in the final degrees of Sagittarius, which is your 8th house. And with Venus in your 8th house, Venus usually brings sweetness to all that it touches. It is a planet of love and trust and comfort and abundance. But being in your 8th house, which is ruled by Scorpio, what we have is a really interesting combination. It may feel like oil and water. You may have felt really good some days and really crappy some other days. But the idea is that while Venus has been moving through your 8th house, it is bringing sweetness to some of the heaviest things that we experience in our human realm. Life, death, rebirth, taxes, debt, karmic patterns, like all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So this weekend, you may feel as though everything that's been happening for you over the last couple of weeks somehow either comes to a head or comes to a conclusion. And then on Monday, what we have is Venus moving into Capricorn, which is way less intense. It's serious, it's steady, it's practical, it's realistic. And so with Venus moving into your 9th house, which is your belief systems and the ways in which you kind of push the envelope or step out of your comfort zone, then that means that you are going to be thinking about, how can I expand my reach? How can I expand my life in a way that helps me thrive rather than just survive? But with Venus moving into Capricorn, that means that the ways in which you approach those really big life questions is going to be really practical. It's going to be really like, okay, well, let's make a list. Let's do pros and cons. Let's come up with practical steps moving forwards, right? It's not going to be flighty. It's not going to be pie in the sky. It's going to be like, I have a dream and I'm going to manifest the shit out of that. Let's figure out how, right? And of course, as a Taurus Sun or a Taurus Rising, nothing can hold you back when you've got your mind on something, that's for sure. So you're definitely going to feel super empowered over the next few weeks. And on Tuesday, Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn, which actually helps us focus our thoughts and focus our plans in a very step-by-step, practical, specific, attention to details kind of way. And for you guys, it's going to be activating your 8th and 11th houses. And what that means is that whatever it is that's coming to a head for you, it's going to be about shifting out of discomfort and into meaningful experiences. So for some of you, it could look like just being really tired of your life being boring, uneventful, draining, all these things, and thinking, okay, I'm going to make a practical plan in order to shift timelines or shift my reality so that I'm living a life of meaning. I'm living a life of transcendence. The 11th house, where Saturn is all about art, music, helping people who really need help, supporting humanity, really beautiful, beautiful themes like that. But Saturn is very serious. And so a lot of the way that you've been approaching these topics and themes is, I noticed this problem, how can I create a practical solution? Or I notice people suffering, how can I, in a very exacting and precise kind of way, either contribute to a charity group or give my time to a community organization or something like that, right? So you typically always have a pretty practical, straightforward approach to everything that you do in your life, right? But there's definitely a breakthrough where you're more willing to take chances. You're more willing to kind of step outside of that box. You're more willing to step outside of your comfort zone, or even maybe kind of push back as far as against the restrictions in your life, or against the the common misconceptions of like, well, this is how it is, suck it up. You might be like, no, I don't like how it is, so I'm going to change it. And that's beautiful, beautiful energy. It's going to take you very, very far. Now, the full moon on November 15th is really interesting. It's going to be in your sign. Well, the moon is in your sign. The sun is opposite in Scorpio. So any full moon ever is going to be a polarizing experience in which our attention is going to be brought to extremes. And the extremes represented by Scorpio and Taurus are really deep feelings versus being super grounded and sorted. So you too may feel as though you kind of flip-flop back and forth between feeling like you 1000% have your shit together and then other days where you're just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. We all have that, right? But on or around the full moon, that polarization within yourself and within the relationships in your life is just going to become like really, really, really glaringly obvious. And outside of that, you may be thinking about, okay, how can I change how I react? How can I change some sort of aspect of who I am or my identity or the life that I live so that I'm not so deeply affected by things that happen? So you might be looking into therapy. You might be looking into changing your diet so that you just feel better. There have been countless scientific studies that link the health of our mental health to the health of our gut. And so if your mental health is in the garbage right now, this is going to be one of those opportunities where you're like, okay, if I eat better, I'll feel better. If I'm really good about drinking water, if I'm really good about getting sleep, if I'm really good about eliminating drama and toxic behavior from my life, that's going to help me get to a place of self-regulation, right? And because the full moon is activating your 7th and 1st houses, it is going to, a lot of what you're noticing is going to be around the people in your life and whether or not those people are a healthy, uplifting influence, or the people in your life, you might realize that some people in your life are kind of pulling you down. So you might end up finding that in order to be healthy, in order to be happy, in order to thrive, you're going to have to either let go of people or situations where you are being held back in some way from reaching your potential or feeling the best that you could. And then moving into the second week that we're covering, on November 18th, Mercury, which is what we think and what we speak, forms in opposition to Jupiter, which is belief systems, hope, optimism. And so you may feel as though your optimism is challenged. You may feel as though your ideas are being challenged. And in a lot of ways, you can be profoundly private about the things that you're thinking about, the things that you're imagining or planning, because you know that people have the ability to just say one word or give you some sort of side eye that completely deflates the air in your tires and makes you just feel like, oh, okay, never mind then, right? So definitely around the time of November 18th, you're going to want to kind of pick and choose who you share these dreams and these thoughts with, because again, this polarization of the people in your life. Some people are going to be like, heck yeah, you go, do it up, right? And then there's going to be some other people in your life that are like, seriously? So you don't want to share that which is sacred with people that are just going to trash it, right? Be really, really choosy who you speak your dreams to. And at the same time, the sun forms a really supportive angle to Venus. So again, if you see what needs to be done, if you know what needs to be done, just do it. You don't even have to announce it. You definitely don't have to tell people what you're doing as far as sharing your dreams or your inspiration or anything. Because as long as nobody takes the air out of your tires, it is totally go time. It is totally a time of really awesome doors opening up for you, new pathways and new possibilities. And that really gets locked in with Pluto moving into Aquarius on November 19th because it enters your 10th house and it's going to be there for 20 years. With Pluto moving into your 10th house, you are endowed with more power when it comes to manifestation, when it comes to career goals, when it comes to any major life goals that you have. It's like having a supercharged battery put into your little, carry-on. Like it's a sense that you are going to be endowed with such a great amount of power and control. Please use it wisely, right? With great power comes great responsibility. But if you are inspired during this 2-week period to step into a position of leadership or to step into a position of power in any form, that pathway is going to be supported. But as much as Pluto is going to empower you, especially in your career sector, it comes with great risk, because those who are in power are often looked down upon. So, or you might be on the receiving end of jealousy or interference. You're going to want to be really careful, again, not only who you share your dreams with, but really, really careful not to step on any toes. Really careful not to bulldoze anything in a way that's inconsiderate, because that karma will come back to you super, super quick. So yeah, when the sun moves into Sagittarius and supports Pluto, this is a time of huge change, whether it be eliminating debt, whether it be aiming for financial security, or a career path in which you receive admiration and recognition, status, anything like that. You're on a super highway to achieving those highest goals, but we have to be so mindful of the energy we bring to a situation, right? So looks amazing. Good luck out there, you guys. I hope you have a great full moon. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. Please feel free to comment below if you have any thoughts you want to share. Like, subscribe, and share this video if you feel so inspired, so that more people in the world can hear the word. Yeah, good luck out there. Mwah. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye. Gemini Sun and Gemini Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We've got a full moon in Taurus. We got Pluto moving into Aquarius. There's a lot of really interesting things happening. So let's jump in. Venus moves into Capricorn this weekend, Monday, which means that this weekend Venus is at the final degrees of Sagittarius. And for you guys, that's your 7th house. You may have been pouring a lot of love, a lot of sweetness, maybe even a lot of money into somebody or something that is very, very close to you. But when Venus moves into Capricorn on Monday, it's almost like, whoa, pulling back the purse strings, pulling back the investments. So on or around Monday, you might get an unexpected bill. You might realize that you have been overspending on your credit card. You might realize that your debt has become unsustainable, because with Venus in Sagittarius for the last couple of weeks, especially in your 7th house, is very spendthrifty. It's very like, it makes me think of Oprah on her show years ago. It used to be like, you have a car, you get a car, everybody gets a car. Venus in Sagittarius in your 7th house has a very strong influence of spending money on the people that you love or on the people in your life, without really thinking about how much it adds up to. And with Venus moving into Capricorn, which is very serious and very focused on, okay, what is the practical reality here? And it moves into your 8th house of debt. You may be in for a sticker shock, whether it be your mortgage going up, or like I said, credit card being maxed out or something like that. So just a bit of a heads up, with Venus moving through Capricorn over the next couple of weeks, it is going to be time to tighten the belt, to tighten those purse strings, to do a solid budget. Really, 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 really look at where your money is going. Check those bills, check those statements. Make sure that you don't have any recurring subscriptions that are bleeding you dry. Make sure that you're not making foolish choices such as retail therapy because you felt like garbage, or overspending on a date or a family member because you were hoping to impress them, and in the end you end up kind of screwing yourself over. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now on Tuesday, Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn, but the influence of that planetary alignment is going to be very specific, very focused thought patterns. So if you want to figure out how to get out of debt, if you want to figure out how to balance your budget, spend in a more thrifty way, make more responsible choices, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is going to be absolutely ideal for being able to approach those things, and maybe kind of put your emotions to the side. We typically have a lot of emotions around themes of money. every single couple ever fights about money. It's always a thing. It's always a point of contention, right? And that may really come up for you as you look at your budget, as you look at your bills, realizing, holy shoot, this is not sustainable. And it may hit you like a heavy ton of bricks. It may be sticker shock, or like I said, an unexpected bill or something. And what I want to warn you against is that you may have an automatic reaction of blaming the people in your life. You want to really, really check yourself, because unless somebody else literally took your credit card and went and spent that money without you, you have nobody to blame but yourself. So please do be mindful about where you direct your frustration. And if you find that there's a lot of emotions around the theme of money, rather than fighting with somebody, go see a financial advisor, cut up those credit cards, cancel those subscriptions, really tighten the belt in a way that you take on personal responsibility, because that's going to be the pathway to sorting these things out lickety-split. If you waste emotions, if you point fingers, you're only distracting from the real solution. Saturn goes direct in your 10th house, right at the same time as we have a full moon in Taurus. So that's Friday, November 15th. There's going to be a sense of, okay, now it's time to get serious. Now it's time to get practical. Now it's time to put these plans into action. And really it has to do with your relationship with money, and your relationship with what I like to refer to as invisible money. And what that means is if we go out and we spend money, for example, on a credit card, or tap your phone or tap your watch or whatever, it feels like invisible money because you didn't hold those dollar bills in your hand. And when we spend in that kind of invisible way, we often have no idea how much we're spending, because we don't have that hand-eye connection where we have a real understanding of what is flowing through our hands, right? And so the full moon is everything in the next week is really pointing a huge, huge, huge spotlight on not only your money situation, but also, and more importantly, the spending habits that got you there. And the only way to approach this is with practical, realistic problem solving. And it does have to do with what you do on a daily basis, and it does have to do with what feels invisible to you. And sometimes some of the best budgeting strategies are to, pull out money when you get a paycheck, for example, and then set up different envelopes and say, okay, this one's for gas, this one's for rent, this one's for extras or groceries or whatever you've got. You've got all these different envelopes, right? And you've got cash in these envelopes so that you see what you're spending, so that you have a clear idea of where you need to be putting your budget, and you have a clear idea of what is available for anything extra, right? You might have to cut back on takeout. You might have to cut back on things like that. Any way in which you're hemorrhaging money that you don't need to, now is the time to tighten the belt. Moving into the second week, starting November 18th, which is a Monday, Mercury forms in opposition to Jupiter. And what you might experience is either regret or resentment. So for example, let's say you were spending money on a loved one or a date or something like that. When you realize how much in debt you are, you may experience resentment of like, damn, I should have spent that money on myself. Or so there is this kind of intertwined theme happening for you guys, which is money and then the emotions around money. And it's so profoundly important to be able to separate the two as much as possible. Because when money and emotions are connected, good things do not happen, right? And then at the same time, Mercury opposes Jupiter, the sun forms a supportive angle to Venus. So whatever shocks, whatever realizations you're having, the ultimate outcome is simply just a reality check that makes you aware that you need to be more aware of your relationship with money and what sort of daily habits either bring in money or spend money. And we want to look at the inflow versus the outflow, and we want to make sure that those balance out, right? And then Pluto moves into Aquarius, November 19th. When that happens, it's going to be entering your 9th house. For you guys, this is huge, like in a good way, really, really good way. Because with Pluto moving through your 8th house, which is ruled by Scorpio, there's been a theme for the past like 20 years around what the power of money means for you, whether you felt empowered or disempowered. There's a lot of different ways it could play out. But Pluto in the 8th house is a huge focus on life or death situations. It's a huge focus on money versus debt. And not only what I do with my money, for example, but what does my partner do? What does my family member do? Because the 8th house is about those shared resources, those shared expenses, and looking at our money situation as a team, right? So when Pluto moves into Aquarius on the 19th, it's going to enter your 9th house, which is, let's try something new. I'm over this heavy stuff. Let's do things differently. And more importantly, whenever we do differently, let the end result be freedom. Let the end result be freedom so that I don't feel like debt is weighing me down. You know what I mean? So if you make freedom your ultimate goal, that is going to be making the most out of this influence. Feeling trapped by debt is one of the most miserable experiences, right? We don't want to be thinking about money all the time. We want to love money. We want to love what money can buy us. We want to have a healthy relationship with money, and we want to treat it respectfully in a way that is not just hemorrhaging it without any second thought, right? And then the sun moves into Sagittarius on November 21st, activating your 7th house. So there is a new, fresh, positive feeling around your relationships. So if you can work out this whole money thing, then the health and the quality of your closest relationships are going to improve exponentially, because this thing that you used to argue about is no longer going to be an issue. It's out the door. You're good. Yeah. So that's what I've got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. I hope it helps you move through the next 2 weeks. There's a lot of kind of volatile energy coming through, but if we just do the best we can with what we've got, we'll get through this, right? So if you liked your horoscopes, please do, if you feel inspired, you can comment below, share your thoughts, like, share, and subscribe so that other people can see this video. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Mwah! Bye. Cancer Sun and Cancer Rising. Welcome to your horoscopes, you guys. There is a lot going on. If you didn't catch the intro, I definitely encourage that you go watch it. I give a great general overview as far as the collective and personal energies happening right now. And one of the biggest things I talk about is Pluto moving into Aquarius, which is really, really awesome, because specifically for you guys, your zodiac sign is Cancer, right? Whether you're a Cancer Sun or Cancer Rising. The focus is on the zodiac sign Cancer. Opposite the chart is Capricorn, and Pluto has been in Capricorn for almost 20 years. And with Pluto opposite your sign, then what that means is that themes of power feel out of reach. That you're over here feeling like you don't have any power and control, because that's what Pluto represents. And you're looking at the world, you're looking at the people around you, and going, well, they have power, how come I don't? So the whole time Pluto has been moving through Aquarius, for Cancer Suns and Cancer Risings, it's been very disempowering. But when we feel disempowered, that is when shadow stuff comes up. That's when we learn what our triggers are. That's when we learn what our deepest values are. And the more that we can approach those really uncomfortable feelings and experiences with the idea that, okay, I want to learn, I want to empower myself. If we can approach with curiosity, we find the answers that set us free. And so what you guys in particular are stepping into is feeling like you have found the answers, you either understand the assignment or you understand the problem, whatever it is, and now you are embarking on a new chapter. Pluto is going to be moving through Aquarius for 20 years, in which you are encouraged to integrate everything that you've learned. You may feel like you're stumbling, you may feel like you're trying very new ways of approaching yourself and your life or your relationships, but what's going to happen is you're going to have an opportunity to put things into practice. What that means is that it's no longer going to be about feeling stuck in a loop. It's going to be about, how can I make different choices? How can I respond differently? How can I alter my life so that I'm thriving instead of just surviving? If that, right? So let's start with now. this weekend, Venus is moving through the final degrees of Sagittarius. And for you guys, that's your 6th house of health, wellness, and daily habits. So maybe as you've been keeping to yourself, maybe as you've been focusing on just kind of living your best life and tuning out the chaos of the world, you have been able to reinfuse yourself, your life, either your physical body or your mental health or both, with more optimism, more positivity, more self-love in some form, right? You've been working really hard and it really is starting to pay off. You're starting to feel a little bit better because you have found ways to love yourself into a better place, right? Because that's what Venus does. Venus wants to soften all that has become hard and rigid. And so that's what Venus has been doing for the last couple of weeks. And now that Venus moves into your 7th house on Monday, what that means is that instead of kind of keeping to yourself and being reclusive, you're going to be more inspired to share that sweetness, that hope, that positivity or inspiration, whatever it is that you've been able to kind of bring through. You're going to be inspired over the next couple of weeks to share that. But the 7th house is like your closest friends. These are one-on-one connections. This is not a big crowd. This is not, you know what I mean? Large public places. This is, okay, I'm ready to come out of my blanket fort and call my bestie. That's what it looks like, right? It could be your neighbor, it could be people close to you, but that's what we're seeing is kind of baby steps out of the self-imposed reclusiveness that you've been going through. And, excuse me. Then on Tuesday, Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn. But what it means is we are going to have a much more focused, laser-like perception when it comes to problem solving, establishing what our next best steps are, or at least coming up with some sort of concrete plan for the future. And for you guys, you're thinking about how to maintain this health. You're thinking about, okay, how can I come out of my blanket fort as a metaphor and keep this positivity, keep this self-love, keep this healthy balance that I have precariously brought together, right? How can I start to take baby steps into expanding my connections or spending more time with the people I love, but still maintain this health and this wellness of mind, body, and spirit? And a holistic approach, which is connecting the mind, body, and spirit and treating the body as a very complex but linked up system, you know what I mean? You can't just be like, oh, I have a headache, let's take a Tylenol. We have to think about, okay, why do I have a headache? Is it because I'm stressed out? Is it because the sun came out for the first time in a couple weeks and I'm like, is it because, you know what I mean? Like if we have a headache because we weren't drinking water, then taking a Tylenol is only making the pain go away, but it's not making the problem go away. So what we have for you guys is a pathway moving forwards in which you're taking a holistic approach to your happiness, to your wellness, to your career, to your life, to your family and everything, right? And if you experience little pangs of discomfort or challenge, rather than having a Band-Aid for each one of them, looking at the complete picture and going, okay, how can I approach this in a holistic way that is going to help me stay healthy in mind, body, and spirit, right? A lot of it has to do with your belief systems. When we know better, we do better. Sometimes we had no idea what we were going through. Somebody I love with all my heart had no idea that they were celiac for 20 years. They were like, oh, I just have headaches all the time. Every single time I eat, I feel like I'm dying. 20 years of abject suffering until they finally figured out they were allergic to gluten. Life-changing, right? But that's the thing. So many times we just go, oh, my stomach hurts. Well, I'll just take some Pepto-Bismol. Or, oh, I have a headache. I'll just take a Tylenol. Not realizing that the holistic approach is going to tell us, actually, we need to make some huge sweeping systemic changes so that we can experience full body health and not feel miserable all the time. So there's a lot of stuff coming in there, whether it be education, philosophy, spirituality, new information, like maybe getting a blood test, maybe having a doctor that takes you seriously. New information is going to be the pathway to supporting your ongoing holistic health. So keep reading, keep looking things up, keep asking questions. If you have a doctor that doesn't listen to you, find a new doctor, right? But onwards and upwards is definitely the theme. Now we're leading up to a very volatile full moon on Friday, November 15th. And for you guys, it's going to be polarizing the 5th and 11th houses. Now the 5th house is about how am I cultivating joy on a personal level. And the 11th house is about cultivating joy or joyful experiences on a global or community level. And this is the axis of the artist, the musician, the free spirit, the sensitive, soft soul. But what we see here is an opportunity for you to approach yourself and your life in a different way. That is prioritizing your health, prioritizing your wellness, prioritizing your well-being, and realizing, funny stuff, if you make sure that you're happy first, everything else in your life is going to smooth out. When we focus on making a partner happy, we often end up resentful. When we focus on making a boss happy, we end up resentful. See where I'm going with this? But if you make yourself happy, then everything else starts to make sense and you're not dealing with a whole bunch of resentment. So really beautiful realizations coming through. Really beautiful, not only realizations, but also awakenings, breakthroughs, and a really positive turn when it comes to either your mental health, your physical health, or both, because they are deeply interconnected. And then moving into the second week that I'm covering, starting November 18th, which is a Monday, Mercury forms in opposition to Jupiter. And so you might have a bit of a pang of like, let's just say you discovered you have a food sensitivity, but it happens to be your favorite food in the world. You might have this pang where you're like, okay, I really want to be healthy, but I freaking love cheesecake or whatever it is, right? You may find that you realize that either you're the only one in your way, or you realize that some sort of deeply ingrained habit or habitual response or way of living your life needs to be systemically kind of dismantled and reformed in order to achieve these health and wellness goals that you have, right? And so what we're seeing on Monday, November 18th is potential around basically being like, I don't wanna, which is totally understandable, right? But yeah, that's where we stand. On the same day, the sun forms a very supportive angle to Venus. So even if you have a big like whole I don't want to kind of feeling around everything that you know you need to change, it will be easier for you to overcome that because you're going to see the benefit for yourself. You're going to see that it makes you happy. You're going to see that it's going to lead to your highest good. And it's going to be easier for you to kind of bite the bullet and move through that discomfort in a way that really, really, really benefits you moving forwards. And then the star of the show, Pluto, moves into Aquarius on November 19th. And when it does, it's moving out of your 7th house and into your 8th house. So, yeah. Pluto being in your 7th house has brought a lot of heavy stuff, like I was saying a second ago, feeling as though you are disempowered, but, you know, from your perspective, other people have power, for example, right? Pluto moving into your 8th house is going to really change the game, where you realize that knowledge is power. You realize that spiritual alignment is power. You realize, you know what I mean? So instead of having such a very black and white perspective around who has power or what that even means, there's a much more transcendental awareness of great power, responsibility, and true strength being demonstrated with wisdom and intelligence, not violence, right? So expect over the next 20 years with Pluto moving through your 8th house, expect to get serious, expect to get deep, but you can also expect a huge boost to your intuition and psychic abilities. Because what happens is when you deal with your mental health, when you deal with your physical health, when you make sure that your headspace is a safe space, guess what? You realize you're psychic. Every single human being on this planet is psychic. But I'm going to say 95% of people are just dealing with so much stuff up here that they don't even realize it, right? And so that's the gift that's coming through for you, is that as you deal with your shadow work, you fix your health, you fix your mental health, and you increase your spiritual connection. So it's gonna be really cool, actually. A little bit of a bumpy road, but you've got this. Absolutely, you've got this. And this is gonna be a huge turning point for you when it comes to any kind of health and wellness stuff that you've been dealing with, especially if you were lacking a solution or lacking a plan. Everything's gonna come together. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. Please feel free to comment below if you have anything that you want to share. Like and subscribe and share this video so that other people can see it. That would be amazing. I would be really grateful. And good luck out there, you guys. Mwah! I will see you next time. Bye. Leo Sun and Leo Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. If you didn't catch the intro in the beginning of the video, I strongly recommend that you go back and check that out because there's a lot of really interesting stuff. But basically there's something happening pretty unique for you guys. You know, Mars is moving through your sign. And anytime Mars moves through somebody's sign, whether you're a Leo Sun or Leo Rising, the effect is the same. And it is to empower you. It is to boost your energy, boost your confidence, and boost your propensity towards taking action rather than just thinking about something or imagining something. And while, you know, as soon as Mars moved into Leo, it is kind of locked into this opposition with Pluto in, it's going to move into Aquarius, but there was this opposition last week where Mars was in the final degrees of Cancer, Pluto was in the final degrees of Capricorn, and they're like this straight line indicating polarization, right? So specifically for you guys, Leo Sun and Leo Rising, what that means is you are learning to empower yourself, but you're kind of taking baby steps, toddler steps into what that looks like. And every single one of us human beings stumbles through themes of empowerment. And the first stage of empowerment is to point a finger and say, I am disempowered because of this or that or them. That is a very kindergarten approach to empowerment, but it's where we all start. It's a human experience, right? And so you too may find that over the next few months, actually, because Mars is going to go retrograde, hop back into Cancer, and then back into your sign, you may find that you have to kind of learn and review what it means to be empowered in a way that also aligns with your highest good and doesn't disempower anyone else in the process. Kind of complex, but it's a very human thing to go through. So don't be hard on yourself. And kind of adding to this energy of polarization, Venus is in the very last degrees of Sagittarius this weekend, which is bringing this energy of self-preservation to your sign. Because with Venus in Sagittarius, it's activating your 5th house, and that is ruled by Leo. So you want to love yourself. You want to be surrounded by people who reflect your best back to you. And you are going to have a very kind of rudimentary approach to those themes, to those thoughts and perspectives, because during this time, you're a little bit blinded by Mars's influence. You're so empowered, you're so focused on doing right for yourself that you may not have that peripheral or situational awareness in which you're able to look at where you're at and understand where other people are at, right? So just a little bit of a heads up that if you get extra riled up over the next few months, if you get extra upset in a way where you're not really thinking about other people, you're only thinking about yourself, it's going to be really important for you to be able to kind of take a step back and be a little bit more objective and say, okay, I am experiencing some really big emotions right now, but am I missing anything in the bigger picture? Am I able to see things differently? Because a lot of what's happening for you guys is perceiving other people's behavior as being intentional when it's not. It's just incidental. If we have a habit of taking everything personally, we're going to be pissed off like all the time, right? So if you feel pissed off all the time, it's quite likely that the reason is because you're taking everything personally. There's an amazing book out there and it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a. And it's got this bright orange cover. It's amazing. I would strongly recommend that you guys read it, because sometimes we end up kind of tripping over ourselves in our lives because we're giving out too many forks, right? And if we kind of ration the forks that we give in our life, it helps us conserve our energy, it helps us be less upset, and it helps us be really focused on the things that truly matter in our lives, right? So it's going to be a bit of a stretch, and then Venus moves into Capricorn on Monday, which means that it is going to be easier for you to have a much more healthy perspective on not only yourself, but the people in your life. And with Venus moving into your 6th house, it's actually a very beneficial influence when it comes to making money, being physically and mentally healthy, and maybe even reestablishing daily routines and habits that help you be on, like, walking your highest path, or help you be at your best on a daily basis, right? One of those things could be like, if you have a habit of waking up and the first thing you do in the morning is check your phone, that's not going to help your mental health at all, right? And so sometimes rearranging our daily routine means, okay, I'm going to be really mindful to leave my phone face down for the first hour of my day. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to make a coffee, I'm going to look out the window, I'm going to let my spirit and my body and my mind wake up slowly and wake up naturally. And by doing that, what we do is we are actively engaging that peripheral and situational awareness, because we're engaging all of our senses, and we're making that the foundation of our day. So whether it be coffee, smoothie, tea, whatever it is, starting your day off right with no social media, no news, no phone whatsoever, no technology, don't even touch it until you've been awake for at least an hour. It's going to make light years of a difference in your life. So just think about those little changes that you can make and how they would have a huge and profound effect on your physical health, your mental health, or otherwise, right? It is all about our daily habits. It is all about what it is that we push off till tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll quit smoking tomorrow. Oh, I'll apply for that job tomorrow, right? And everything that's coming through for you guys is like, how about now? All we ever have is now. Now is the perfect opportunity. And so that's really going to kind of like be a bit of a peek, a window, and, you know, a nagging thought in your brain starting Monday. By Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to be like, actually, I need to take this seriously. Actually, I really need to do some thinking and some planning so that I can take action in a way that is healthy and sustainable. So Mercury square Saturn on Tuesday is really kind of bring that into focus. For some of you, it may be realizing that you've been putting off something serious or something important, and you got to do it now. For some of you guys, it's about realizing that you have not been thinking about how much you've been spending money, and then you get some sort of a bill or a credit card statement, and you go, oh, shoot. So everything around Tuesday, Wednesday is a bit of a serious reality check, but there's also a sense that you knew it was coming. So it isn't going to be a surprise, but it is going to be a wake-up call that you cannot ignore anymore. And then Friday, November 15th, we have a full moon in Taurus, and at the exact same time, Saturn goes direct. So this is the time to take practical action to set you up for the future in a way that you feel confident about the resources you have access to, and confident about the life habits that you have. A lot of the times we're embarrassed, and the reason we don't address things is because we're kind of embarrassed to admit there's a problem at all, and behind that, embarrassed to ask for help. Sometimes we're embarrassed about the debt that we carry, right? But the second we talk to a financial advisor or a debt consolidation person, we can experience that relief, because we're like, oh, thank God, I'm finally dealing with this. And that's what's coming through for you guys. The full moon on Friday is going to be polarizing and activating your 4th and your 10th houses. That's the bottom and the top of your chart. It is the axis of work-life balance. So for a lot of you, it's going to be about realizing that you've been playing too much and not enough work. For some of you, it's going to be realizing that you've been working too much and not enough play. The sun is shining a light on your 4th house. So there is a spotlight being put on what are the foundations from which you create a life. And what is it that you do to support your emotional health? What is it you do to ensure that you have a roof over your head? And what sort of practical action can you take to approach these things in a more healthy and sustainable way? Because the full moon in your 10th house is all about what is our plan for the future? What are the steps we're going to take so that we're sorted moving forwards? And because the full moon is going to be exactly conjunct Uranus, which is change, transformation, and upheaval, there's a huge likelihood that on some level, when it comes to either your career, your plans for the future, how you spend your money, whatever it is, it's a huge indication that you're going to have to change something big. And there's a big part of you that's not going to want to. So you are really only battling with yourself, but the more that you can pay attention to the ways in which you need to grow or mature or take things seriously, that is going to be the key to unlocking the future that you really, really want to manifest for yourself. And it's okay because starting Monday, November 18th, those possibilities really start to congeal. It's possible on Friday, November 15th, it's going to be really emotional for you and you're not going to really see what the next best steps are. But over the weekend, by the time we get to Monday, Tuesday, the 18th-ish, you're going to be like, okay, I know where I need to let go of this. I know where I need to embrace this. And there's going to be love. There's going to be sweetness. There's going to be compassion inside of your heart when it comes to approaching these topics that you haven't always really wanted to look at. So if there's ever a good time to talk about your emotions, to talk about your finances, to talk about a plan for the future, November 18th is going to be awesome because you're going to be able to move past any big emotions that prevented these conversations before. And then Pluto moves direct into Aquarius on November 19th. You guys are Leo sun or Leo rising. And when Pluto moves into Aquarius, that's exactly opposite you guys. It's going to be there for 20 years. So it is not a short-term influence, and it's going to be putting a huge highlight on your perception of power, specifically your perception of the power that other people hold. So for some of you, it might be feeling disempowered at first, and then through that, finding a way to empower yourself. It could be feeling disempowered by either some specific person close to you, or a vague disempowered by the man, or disempowered by society, or whatever it is. The risk in that transit is to go through a bit of self-pity or wallowing in your disempowerment. But after any experience of grief or big emotions, on the other side of it is, okay, what can I do about this? Enough's enough. Something's got to change, right? So that's kind of the biggest thing happening for you guys, is that any ways in which you are disempowering yourself, that's going to be the key to unlocking whatever puzzle you're dealing with. So I hope that helped. I hope that your horoscopes resonated. Please feel free to comment below if you want to share your thoughts. And I love it when people like and subscribe and share my videos. It helps these videos get to more people. That would be amazing if you felt inspired to do so. So thank you so much for being here. I wish you guys all the very best. Mwah! I will see you next time. Virgo sun and Virgo rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We definitely have a lot going on. There are some personal and collective influences that are just like, ooh, right now. If you didn't catch the general overview at the beginning of this video, I definitely encourage you to do that so that you kind of have an idea of what these energetic currents are bringing into our reality right now. But let's start with Venus moving into Capricorn. So this weekend, Venus is at the final degrees of Sagittarius. And for you guys, that is your 4th house. So with Venus being in your 4th house over the last couple of weeks, you've been going through a bit of an emotional roller coaster. But it has had an effect of stirring up the dust. And when Venus is in Sagittarius, it brings sweetness to our belief systems, whether it be hope, knowledge, inspiration, philosophy, spirituality, whatever it is. And so the effect of that transit happening in your 4th house of emotional health has been bringing up for you guys, stirring up for you guys, what are the belief systems that you were taught as a child? What sort of effect did your family of origin have on your ongoing mental and emotional health. And so in order to feel healthier, in order to deal with any challenging emotions that have been really sitting in the pit of your soul for decades, whatever it is, Venus had a way of kind of stirring those things up. Because we've been moving through Scorpio season, for a lot of people, it's been some gnarly shadow work. Whatever end of the spectrum you have been on, whether it be like the super heavy shadow work all the way up to, maybe I should pay attention to that. The long and the short of it is that for Virgo Sun and Virgo Rising, it has been a process of bringing sweetness to your soul. And the degree to which you did not love yourself is the degree to which this would have been a heavy, heavy, difficult experience for you. If you already had self-love, it would have just been reaffirming. But if you have been struggling to love yourself, then Venus moving through your 4th house would have stirred up the dust so that you could see why you had a negative perspective of yourself, and allowing you to bag it up and put it in the trash. Because if we can change the way we think, we can change our lives. And often the ways in which we feel stuck or miserable, it's all because of what we think of ourselves. And by healing those things, we give ourselves a solid foundation from which we can thrive instead of just survive. So, with Venus moving at the very end degrees of Sagittarius, that means that over this weekend, whatever it is that you've been learning or working through or processing over the last couple of weeks, there's going to be a sense of either everything kind of congealing, coming together, full circle moments, completion moments, aha moments, stuff like that. And then starting on Monday, Venus moves into Capricorn, activating your 5th house. Now, because Virgo, whether you're Virgo Sun or Virgo Rising, it's an earth sign. And when Venus moves into Capricorn, another earth sign, it is no longer going to feel like a challenging influence. It's going to feel affirming. It's going to feel nourishing. It's going to feel like a boost to your soul. And with Venus moving into Capricorn, activating your 5th house of the inner child, anything it was that you worked through as far as family roots, family of origin, deep emotional reservoirs of early life experiences, whatever it was, now that Venus is moving into your 5th house, it's joy, it's play, it's holding space for your inner child. It's approaching everything with so much more love and gentleness and compassion instead of being hard on yourself. So it is going to be a really beautiful influence, Venus moving through Capricorn. It is going to bring sweetness to your personal relationship with joy and pleasure, creativity and whatnot. And for some of you, it's going to boost your sex life as well, because there is a direct connection there. Now, on Tuesday, Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn. Mercury is your planetary ruler. It's what we think, it's what we say, it's what we believe. And when it forms a square to Saturn, it just means that our thoughts and our words get very specific and very, very, very precise and exacting, focused on details, focused on empirical evidence, like really like, you know what I mean? Detail oriented, but that's your jam. As a Virgo Sun or Virgo Rising, details are your thing. And so on or around Tuesday, you're going to have an opportunity to take everything that you've learned about yourself, about your emotions, about your family roots, and put it into practice in a way that nourishes and strengthens the relationships in your life that are worth that effort. But the other side of it is that if you have come to the realization that any of the relationships in your life, personal or professional, these are like one-on-one connections, if any relationships in your life are triggering your inner child or reactivating those wounds, or if you come to the realization that the adult relationships you have are an echo of the toxic, unhealthy, or non-nourishing ones you had earlier in life, it's going to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Clean sweep. We're done here. So it's going to be a very black and white experience, on or around Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, just kind of realizing, wait a minute, I've been going through some massive breakthroughs. And if I want to keep this healthy momentum, if I want to keep this self-love, I got to take a really serious look at the relationships in my life and make some hard decisions about whether or not these relationships are going to support my ongoing well-being, right? Because if they're not, chuck it in the fuck it bucket. And then what happens is on Friday the 15th, we have a full moon in Taurus. So this is where things get a little wild and spicy. The sun in Scorpio is in your third house. And the third house is our inner circle. Earlier in our lives, it's our siblings or schoolmates. But as we get older, it ends up kind of being like our circle of friends, our closest people. It could be people in your neighborhood. It does represent networking. Sometimes it represents like a small business, if you're self-employed or sole proprietorship, anything like that. So the sun has been shining a light on who's in your inner circle and what sort of things do you and your friends talk about. And to oppose it, the full moon in Taurus is activating your ninth house. And the ninth house is all the things that we've come to believe. And the question of whether or not those belief systems are either opening doors for us or closing them. And so the whole theme for you guys over the next couple of weeks is starting with this awareness of what in your early life made you the way you are, recognizing the foundation of emotional health that you have inside of yourself, looking at the quality, looking at the health of your emotions, and then starting to really expand those realizations into, okay, who are the people in my life? And as far as the things we talk about, as far as the things that we collectively and individually believe, is everything that I've learned going to be supported in these groups of people? Or do I need to really make some hard choices as far as who I let into my inner circle? Because my inner circle has to be a very sacred space, because I need to be able to let my guard down. I need to be able to occasionally just let it all out, right? And that's the biggest thing that you guys have been going through while Saturn has been moving through your seventh house, is the seriousness around the long-term relationships in your life and the question of whether or not these relationships are healthy, sustainable, leading to your well-being or taking away from it, right? So lots of heavy thoughts, lots of big things kind of clicking into place, where all of a sudden, boom, it is super clear what you need to do when it comes to either keeping people in your life or maybe letting some people go, right? That full moon is really going to bring things to a huge peak, a huge conclusion, in which it's just obvious what you need to do to keep yourself safe. Now, as far as taking action, that is your choice, that is your free will. Astrology only shows potential, right? It could be a sunny day, but it is free will whether or not you're going to go outside. So you are definitely encouraged to take action on everything that you've learned. Life has a funny way of wiping our brains clean, because every single day it's a million new things, right? And if we don't lock into these realizations and take action to integrate them, they very quickly disappear, and then karma brings them right back again if we haven't resolved them, right? So if you do it now, you won't have to do it again down the road. And then moving into the second week that we're covering, it just starts to really kind of just be so clear. And you may even have moments being like, I can't believe I didn't see this before. I can't believe I didn't heal this or realize this before. But whatever, it's divine timing. It happened when it needed to. You're here now, and now is all we have. So into the second week, as we start to look at November 18th, 19th, and 20th, there's definitely realizing when and where you feel emotionally safe, thinking about what you want out of the future, thinking about the relationships you have and whether or not they cultivate joy or take away from that. And then, of course, making some really hard choices about what you want to do. So on November 19th, Pluto moves into Aquarius, locking in its position in your sixth house for the next 20 years. Sixth house is ruled by Virgo. And so what it means is that over the next 20 years, there's going to be a huge focus on how can I take everything that I learned and put it into practice? How can I empower myself on a daily basis, that I am taking responsibility for my headspace? I'm taking responsibility for my physical health. I'm integrating these things that I've learned into healthy habits and not self-sabotaging anymore, right? So it definitely feels for you guys like the learning period is coming to a conclusion, and everything that's opening up is now it's time to put it into practice. Now it's time to live this truth. Now it's time to cement these ideals in a way that makes me really, really glad to be alive and loving myself unconditionally. So I hope that helped. I hope that resonated. I hope you guys liked your horoscopes. Good luck out there, especially on or around the full moon, Friday the 15th. It is going to be quite volatile. Avoid arguments, avoid tricky people, avoid dangerous situations. It's just not a good time to touch any of that, right? So if you enjoyed your horoscopes, I would love it if you would like, share, subscribe, just so that these videos get to more people. That would be amazing. And feel free to comment below if you have any thoughts or insights you'd like to share. I'd love to hear from you. Good luck out there. Mwah! Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye. Libra Sun and Libra Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. There's a lot going on. There's huge planetary transitions locking in this over the next 2 weeks. And we also have a very volatile full moon on the 15th. If you didn't catch the general overview that I did in the intro of the video, I strongly recommend that you go check it out because there's a lot of really, really good information in there. But what I'm going to do right now is focus very specifically on your sign, whether you're a Libra Sun or a Libra Rising. And what we're looking at, I'm going to start by talking about Venus because Venus brings love and sweetness. And with all of the challenging things happening in the world today, let's start off on a good note, shall we? Okay, so Venus brings love and sweetness. And this weekend, it is finishing up its journey through Sagittarius. And while Venus was in Sagittarius, it brought a very lighthearted, positive, hopeful, optimistic kind of energy. Excuse me. And for you guys, it was moving through your third house. The third house is our close connections. When we're little, it's our schoolmates, it's our siblings, or whatever we've got kind of close to us, right? And then the older we get, the third house starts to represent kind of like our crew of people, who our favorite people are. And it can also be associated with the connections that we have, personal or professional. Sometimes the third house represents small businesses, especially self-employment or sole proprietorship, something really small, right? So basically, while Venus has been moving through your third house, if you had a small business, it would have strengthened it. If you were looking to make connections in the world, personal or professional, those doors would have opened, right? And because the third house is also associated with the conversations that we have, there would have been social connections, there would have been lighthearted conversations, maybe you were just really inspired to call people, or maybe you felt like your phone was just ringing off the hook. But what happens this weekend is that Venus finishes its journey through there. And so there might be a sense of urgency when it comes to either making business decisions or advertising or networking, or maybe wanting to have a really urgent conversation with somebody that you have to get something off your chest, or you have to share a piece of information or a truth or whatever it is. And then as soon as Monday comes, Venus moves into Capricorn. And it's kind of like, it's like the curtain's closing on the stage, and now everything that's happening is backstage. So when Venus moves into your fourth house, which is typically associated with like your home or your private space or your sacred thoughts and feelings, now we have this massive switch where all of a sudden, you might either be less inclined to be social, or you might just find that social invitations, conversations, emails, calls, maybe those just get quieter for a couple of weeks, right? But the long and the short of it is that there's going to be a huge energetic shift when it comes to the quality and quantity of connections that you engage with over the next couple of weeks. So, like I said, Venus brings sweetness. And when it moves into your fourth house of all that is sacred to you, you may be more inspired. Instead of being social, you might want to spend time at home. And sometimes these things really coincide with the change in weather, right? Maybe you just want to be cozy. Maybe you have a little bit less energy. Maybe you want to rearrange or redecorate or something like that. But your attention is definitely going to be focused on pouring your love and your energy into yourself, into all that helps you feel safe, sacred. So that could be your metaphorical home in your heart, or it could be your literal home that you live in. So definitely a bit of a vibe shift there, but you know, everything has a time and a season, right? And it's just a couple of weeks of a transit. And then in a few weeks, when Venus moves into Aquarius, then you're going to be social again, because the 5th house is all about joy and pleasure. So it's going to be a brief period in which there's less social interactions, but that's okay. You might even need time to recover, recuperate, and recharge. And the other thing that happens in the beginning of the week is that Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn. And what that means is that our thoughts, our communications, it's all going to take a much more serious, precise tone. So definitely across the board for you guys, it's kind of this feeling of like, the party's over, we really need to get down to business. And you may find that as soon as the week starts, you just hit the ground running, that there's a lot of really practical details that you need to pay attention to. You don't have time for socials. You don't have time for phone calls. You really got to take care of business. And that is really strengthened because Mercury is in your 3rd house. So again, your thoughts, your communications, there still is stuff that needs to be said and done, but it's going to take a much more professional tone instead of a personal, social tone, if that makes sense. And with Saturn being in your 6th house of work, daily habits, and routine, that's where we see that focus of attention being far more on the practical details than the frivolous stuff. So definitely serious, definitely getting down to business. But what's really cool is that Saturn moves direct on Friday. And when it does, we also have a full moon. Now, the energy of the full moon is very volatile. The sun is in Scorpio, the moon is in Taurus, and the moon is conjunct Uranus, which is like the wrecking ball of astrology. And so personally and collectively, there's going to be a lot of intensity around the full moon. I can't say this enough. Avoid tricky people. Avoid dangerous situations. Do not get into a battle of ego or will with anyone. Not much good can come out of forcefully pushing energy around that time. The energy's already going to be intense. We want to dampen it. We want to soften it. We don't want to feed any of that volatility. So do be careful and mindful about the nature and the topics by which you have conversations over the next week. Keep it business, keep it professional, and as much as you can, try and keep your feelings out of things. And on that note, don't take what other people say too personally. It's just kind of a crazy time right now, and we want to just let the energy subside before we tackle these tricky things. So when Saturn goes direct, it is a good omen for your money, for your work, anything it is that you're trying to do on a very practical level. Money, access to resources, things like that. Especially if it feels, or if it had felt like maybe money dried up, or maybe work was hard to come by, or maybe work was just really slow and it felt like you were moving backwards, not forwards. Saturn moving direct is going to totally shift the direction of the energy and momentum so that work is moving forwards, so that the tasks that you're taking on, it's going to be easier to complete them, easier to follow through on things. Things are just going to start moving in a way that is going to help you feel like, oh, thank God, things are finally moving. And then Friday's full moon is going to activate your 2nd and 8th houses. The biggest thing with 2nd and 8th houses is money. 2nd house is the money we see and have immediately available. It's the resources, the food, the comfort that we have. And then the 8th house, I kind of like to refer to it as like invisible money. Debt, credit cards, mortgages, stuff like that. We know it's there, but we don't like physically touch it. You know what I mean? And so this full moon is really going to bring your attention to finances. Hopefully you experience the Uranus influence as a breakthrough, but there's a very high likelihood that the full moon is also going to bring some sort of a breakdown. For some people, it might be a breakup. And the one thing that couples fight about across the board, no matter who you are, is money. And so if money has been a point of contention within any partnerships that you have, personal or professional, that's what's going to come to a head on Friday. And for some people, it might mean breaking up because you just can't come to an agreement on income, expenses, whatever it is. If you are not in a partnership, if that's not even a thing for you, then it's going to be about your personal expenses, your personal debt. And if any of those things have become unsustainable, then it's just going to become really, really clear and really obvious that action needs to be taken in order to achieve rebalancing. So that's the theme for the next week. And then moving into the second week, starting November 17th, which is a Sunday, November 18th, we have Mercury opposite Jupiter, and then the Sun forms a really beautiful angle to Saturn. So any intensity that you experience over the next 7 days, it is going to peak on Friday with the full moon. And then the next week, it's going to be about, okay, I said the thing, I realized the thing, I'm ready to take action. Rather than focusing on the problem, in the second week, starting November 17th, 18th, you're going to be focused on the solution. And I love reframing instead of problem solving. If you reframe it as solution discovery, what we're doing is we're taking the focus away from the stuff that's not working out, and we're going, okay, yeah, I know about the stuff that's not working out. What are some practical steps I can take in order to achieve resolution? And so that might be a big thing for you, because a lot of the stuff that's coming through is not only the practical details of what you're dealing with, but also the huge emotions behind them, right? The reason we fight about money is because if we have it, great, but if we don't, it activates primal fear around themes of survival, right? So if we can reframe our experiences, our emotions, our anything in a way that helps us understand why we're feeling so intensely, then that helps us work towards solutions, right? And then on November 19th, Pluto moves into Aquarius. So this is a big once in 250 years kind of event. Over the last couple of years, Pluto kept tiptoeing into Aquarius and then going, haha, just kidding. And then going retrograde into Capricorn. It got old. It's been brutal. It's been really, really challenging. It's been a lot of shadow work. It's been a lot of conflict. It's been a lot of surprises that are not fun. But what we have now is a sense of, we can leave the past in the past. We can work towards the future, onwards and upwards. And for you guys, for Pluto to move out of your 4th house and into your 5th house, it means whatever shadow work that you've been doing around themes of your family of origin, themes of emotions, themes of stability, themes of karmic patterns and roots of why you are the way you are. That's been a solid 20 years of processing some ridiculously heavy stuff. And so for you guys especially, this is a blessing, because not only is Pluto moving into your 5th house of joy, creativity, play, it is also offering you an opportunity to empower your inner child. Figuring out why your inner child was disempowered was the last 20 years. You already figured it out, right? And that was some heavy, heavy stuff to work through. So to step into a new 20-year period in which you're like, I'm focused on joy, I'm focused on pleasure, I'm focusing on loving myself, and really enjoying my life, it's going to be a beautiful, welcome change. And then to top it off, Pluto being in Aquarius is another air sign like you. So huge, healthy momentum, blessings, peace, like peace of mind, and really feeling like you can finally leave the past in the past. So lots of good stuff coming through for you guys. Seeking out healthy connections, personal and professional, putting your health, your enjoyment, your wellness as a high priority. All of these things are going to now be integrated into your daily habits instead of just being conceptual understandings, right? Awesome. So lots of good stuff. I hope your horoscopes resonated. I hope you liked your horoscopes. Please feel free to comment below if you have any thoughts or insights that you want to share. And if you feel so inspired, please like and subscribe and share this video so that other people get to see these insights and these horoscopes. Thank you so much for being here. Mwah! And I will see you tomorrow. Not tomorrow. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye. Scorpio Sun and Scorpio Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. It's going to be a wild ride. It's already been a wild ride. If you did not catch the intro in the beginning, I strongly recommend you do. I've got some really cool stuff in there. Basically what's happening is this is all building up to a full moon on Friday, and shortly after the full moon, Pluto moves into Aquarius. So huge energetic shifts with massive implications on a personal level and collective level. So let's start with Venus. Let's start with something good. Venus brings love, sweetness, and comfort to all that it touches. And Venus is finishing up, moving through your second house over this weekend. Venus being in your second house was awesome as far as making money and resources available, or simply just helping you feel more at peace with where you are, especially in relation to physical comfort, trust, feeling like your needs are being met. And then what happens is on Monday, Venus moves into Capricorn. So when Venus moves into Capricorn, it's going to be less of feeling like it's a learning and growing experience, and it's going to feel more like putting it into practice. And Venus moving into Capricorn is going to activate your third house of close connections, conversations, support groups, the people that you love the most, like your crew, right? When Venus moves into your third house, you can definitely expect over the next couple of weeks a solid uptick when it comes to social invitations, but also your desire to be social. When Venus was moving through your second house over the last couple of weeks, there was very likely a huge focus for you on, I can't be social right now, I need to make some money. But now that there's a sense that you've either sorted that out, or maybe you've minimized your lifestyle so that you don't have to hustle so much, Venus is going to now move into a part of your chart that's like, let's have fun. Let's shake things off. Let's call a friend. Let's go out for karaoke, whatever it is, right? So you guys are moving into a really good place. There is a lot of really positive influences for you guys over the next 2 weeks. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn, but it's not as challenging as other planets that are locked into a square, simply because it's almost like Mercury, which represents our thoughts, is like challenge accepted. And so when it forms a square to Saturn, it's like, okay, I might have this serious thing, or I might have this practical thing that I have to figure out, but I've got the brain power to do it. I'm going to get my to-do lists. I'm going to look things up. I'm going to figure this shit out. And so when it comes to figuring out what your next best steps are, the idea for you guys, Scorpio Sun and Scorpio Rising, is that whatever it is you figured out as far as making more money or living simply so you don't have to hustle, whatever it was you figured out over the last few weeks with Venus moving in your second house, now you're putting it into practice. So you might have come to the realization that you were spending way too much money on recreational activities. And so now what you're going to be doing moving forwards is just kind of picking and choosing a couple of special things you want to put money into, but then putting the rest in savings. You might be realizing you're going to cancel some subscriptions, and that'll free up $100. Or maybe you're going to realize, I can't really do takeout every day, even though I hate cooking. So whatever practical changes you can make and integrate on a daily basis, you're going to be doing so, but doing so with joy. Because it's not about somebody else telling you, oh, you got to figure this out, you got to grow up, you got to get more serious. It's you telling yourself, I will feel better if I take this seriously. I will feel way less stressed out if I formulate a budget and stick to it. Because that is going to make it so that not only are you finding little ways to enjoy yourself right now, but you're also setting aside money so that you can have fun down the road too, or accomplish those financial goals that you've got in mind. Now, on Friday, we have a full moon. And the full moon is going to have the sun in your sign, but the moon is going to be opposite in Taurus. And the moon is going to be conjunct Uranus, which is like the wrecking ball of astrology. Sometimes breakdowns, breakups, but usually breakthroughs. And this full moon, though, it is such a polarizing, volatile energy that the likelihood of breakdowns is really at the top of the list. I can't stress this enough. Please avoid tricky people. Please avoid drama. Please avoid dangerous places. Do not put yourself in any kind of dangerous situation towards the end of the week or the beginning of the weekend, just because it's way too risky. Mars is still opposite Pluto. This is not a time to be pushing buttons or poking the bear. I just can't say that enough. Focus on your own inner peace. Focus on your well-being. Focusing on the little things that make life lovely is the best way to get through this challenging influence relatively unscathed. But what you might experience on or around the full moon is not so much that you feel discombobulated, but noticing profound dysregulation in people around you. If possible, you can lend your calm, but there's going to be other situations in which just kind of closing the door and waiting for the storm to pass might be your best approach. Every situation is going to be different. And then as we get into the second week of these horoscopes, looking at November 18th, 19th, we start to see some breakthroughs, some hope, some positivity. So whether it be realizing that the budget that you're sticking to means that, oh my goodness, you're paying off that credit card really fast, right? Or maybe you're going to start to just kind of see that proof in the pudding, that the more that you are loving yourself, the more healthy your friendships are. And the more that you're picking and choosing healthy people to spend time with, the more that you feel healthy. So the more that it's not just about putting these things into practice, but it's about you having the opportunity to see these things work, these choices, these behaviors, these energies. Wow, it's really paying off, right? And then that becomes momentum that is self-propelling. The hardest part is getting started. The hardest part is making changes or choices that don't feel familiar. But once these things start to become ritual or just kind of second nature, that's when we kind of can sit back and go, wow, okay, this is working. Yeah, you know what I mean? So that's what's going on. And then November 19th, Pluto moves into Aquarius. So Pluto has been in your third house for almost 20 years, which means that there's been a huge question around power and control within friend groups, within your personal and professional networks, within the conversations that are coming up in these scenarios, right? But Pluto moving into your fourth house is going to be a new 20-year chapter in which you're going to be having a big focus on your emotional well-being. So the fourth house is about how your heart is home and how your literal space is your home. Both of those things are represented by the fourth house. And when we think about our emotional health, one of the highest, most important and profound contributors to emotional health is our family of origin. And so all of these themes are kind of interconnected. What that means is that for the next 20 years, when Pluto moves through your fourth house, you may feel as though the dust is being stirred up. You might feel like memories surface from childhood. You might come to the realization either on your own or through therapy of why you are the way you are. But whatever it is that comes up, whatever dust that gets stirred up, the idea is that you are removing the clouds, removing the cobwebs, and removing the obstacles in the way of you achieving a beautiful, peaceful, healthy self-love that is not, because it's the fourth house associated with Cancer, which is a water sign, we want our emotions to flow. And I was just about to say that you want to make sure that your sacred space is not stagnant. When it's stagnant, we're going la 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 to the things that are bothering us, but those things just wait for us, right? So you may find that anything that you kind of put on the back burner when it comes to your family of origin or your emotional health or the health of your home, you may find that all these things are like, how about now? We need to address this now. And so the extent to which that you've been kind of saying no, 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 it's either going to be really overwhelming or just kind of affirming if you already were working on these things. But have no fear. Whatever comes up is leading you to being super, super, super emotionally healthy. So like I said, either through your own process or with a therapist or some sort of trained professional, if you find that really big stuff is coming up, please do seek professional support with that process. It will help kind of take the power out of anything that feels overwhelming, and to be able to receive support with this emotional self-analysis is going to help you make the breakthroughs that you need to, instead of having a breakdown, right? Love yourself into healing. It is the new way. And when the sun moves into Sagittarius on the 21st, it's going to be activating your second house. So I do see a lot of financial prosperity coming through for you. I do see a lot of really affirming opportunities coming through for you. It's far less about, like, you know how when you start a lot of these processes, it's like shocking and overwhelming? That part's already over. Now what you're doing is just integrating. And so it's not going to be nearly as hard as the last few years, but there is still work to be done. Just as long as you approach yourself and your challenges with love and compassion, everything's going to work out just fine. So good luck out there. Definitely go check out the intro if you didn't already. And if you feel like sharing any comments, thoughts, or insights, please by all means comment below. And if you feel inspired to like, subscribe, and share this video, I would appreciate it very much. It helps me expand my reach. It helps more people get this information. Mwah! Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye. Sagittarius Sun and Sagittarius Rising. Welcome to your horoscopes. We've got a lot going on. If you didn't check the general overview in the intro of this video, I strongly recommend that you do. There's a lot of cool information in there. And I talk about the history of Pluto being in Aquarius. That's the biggest thing. We've got a full moon in Taurus. We've got Pluto moving into Aquarius for good. So there's this huge kind of personal and collective vibe shift and transition happening right now. But the full moon in Taurus on Friday, November 15th is really tapping into and almost exaggerating the element of surprise that we have been going through right now. And whether you be, kind of shocked by turns of events in your own personal life or that which is happening on the global scale, there's sort of this element of maybe dealing with that which is unexpected or dealing with that which is out of your control. And so as we surf these themes of powerlessness and empowerment, it's almost like you're kind of struggling to find dry ground, right? The biggest thing happening for you guys is that Venus has been in your sign for a couple of weeks now, and it's beautiful. Venus brings sweetness and love to all that it touches, and moving through your sign has helped you see yourself as unconditionally worthy and lovable. It's helped you soften your own perspective. It's helped you be less hard on yourself. Whether you feel as though in your personal and professional life you're finally being recognized or paid what you deserve, or maybe you feel as though that sweetness is coming through simply with the connections you have, the love you receive, but it's been a really, really beautiful softening and confidence boosting influence, that's for sure. So when Venus moves into Capricorn on Monday, it's going to be entering your second house. So it's going to be moving away from themes of identity and personality, and it's going to be moving into themes of not only what you manifest, but also what you value, what you deem most important in your life. And so it's again going to have that softening influence of helping you really kind of narrow down your priorities, focus on what really matters, and you might even be taking a solid look at your finances. Thinking about, okay, what's my income and what's my expenses? And if one is way bigger than the other, then we really need to reach a balance. You might be budgeting. You might be kind of really just thinking about, okay, how can I approach this differently so that maybe I don't have to hustle as much as I do. I want to be comfortable. But if I think about the lifestyle that I'm living and I aim for living within my means, then it'll make everything so much easier, right? Venus moving into your second house does have strong implications of getting a raise, getting a promotion, receiving money, receiving gifts, anything like that. And of course, we're entering, some of you guys are having a birthday coming up as well. So there's a lot of celebration. There's a lot of positivity and good vibes coming through for you guys. And what we have kind of as the week gets started, Mercury forms a challenging square to Saturn on November 12th, which is a Tuesday, but it has this effect of helping us be really focused, with all that we're thinking about, talking about, problem solving. And for you guys, it is going to be bringing together the first house of identity and the fourth house of safety and emotional health. You may be trying to fit into some sort of box, and you may be trying to kind of make peace with the ways in which you have to either, you know, lower your vibration or dim your shine in order to live this professional role, but then finding ways to celebrate yourself and celebrate how shiny and sparkly you are in your personal life. So there's a bit of that kind of challenge of, okay, how do I integrate in a way that I'm living an authentic life, but I'm also being mindful of what's appropriate when and where. So you might be making plans around emotional health. You might be making plans around where it is that you live, whether it be repairs to your home or decorating or rearranging or whatever it is. And that's definitely going to continue with Saturn moving direct on Friday. Now, at the same time Saturn goes direct on Friday, there's also a full moon. And the sun is in Scorpio, the moon is in Taurus, and the moon is exactly conjunct Uranus, which is change, upheaval, transformation, sometimes crisis and chaos. It's a mixed bag. And so this full moon is going to be activating, like the sun is in your 12th house. So there's a light shining on both your subconscious, your superconscious, like connection to spirit. And maybe you're thinking about just really wanting to clean out the cobwebs. Maybe you are like cleaning your house, or maybe you're realizing that some deep self-analysis, emotional work, psychological work is going to help you achieve peace of mind. You're shining a light on the ways in which maybe you feel not peaceful, and you have a very strong desire to achieve equilibrium, healthy balance, and self-love. You really want to pull it all together. It really does feel like now you're starting to kind of pull these different strands from different parts of your life and be like, okay, let's make them all meet in the middle so that I'm like happy with who I am and happy with the life that I live, right? So all these things really are coming together in a really funny, really beautiful, serendipitous kind of way. And the full moon just kind of affirms that and accentuates that it is not possible for us to be physically healthy if we are not mentally healthy. And also it's not possible for us to be mentally healthy if we're not physically healthy. Countless scientific studies have proven that our mental health is directly linked to the health of our gut. And so if we're eating garbage food, we're going to feel garbage up here, right? And so all these things are coming together: your spiritual health, your mental health, your emotional health, your career health, your physical health, all these things, right? And the more that you can see yourself as a complex system rather than this part, this part, this part, and this part, if you see yourself and your life as an interconnected system, it's easier to approach with ease and grace instead of feeling overwhelmed by, oh, this different thing and oh, this different thing. If you see them interconnected, you can approach a central theme and fix all the things at the same time. The key thing for you guys is self-love, that's for sure. And making sure that if you screw up, if you struggle, if you have a hard time, do not beat yourself up. It doesn't help, I promise. If you love yourself into healing and growing and expanding, that's the best way. So after the full moon, which is going to be really intense, and please, by the way, on or around the full moon on Friday the 15th, avoid toxic people, avoid dangerous situations. Do not get into any arguments with anyone. It is not the time. Let the volatile energy of the full moon pass. And then when we enter the second week of these horoscopes, around November 18th, Mercury forms an opposition to Jupiter. So our attention is definitely going to be brought to, how can I be free of mind, body, and spirit? How can I love my life, love myself in a way that opens possibilities instead of limiting them? And the sun forms a really supportive angle to Venus at the same time. So it's a very beautiful, beneficial influence at this time, helping us really see the path clearly moving ahead and really kind of have that motivation and that inspiration to make hard choices, to stick to a budget, to go to therapy, to eat well. But you're going to start seeing almost immediately after you make these healthy choices how they contribute to a whole body, whole life health that is so profoundly rewarding. It becomes its own motivation. And then Pluto moves Pluto moves into Aquarius, on November 19th. Pluto is moving direct. It's just I looked at all these things at the same time and stumbled over my words. Pluto moves into Aquarius for good, and it's going to spend 20 years there. And while it makes its way through Aquarius, for you guys, that's your third house of personal and professional connections. The third house when we're little is like our siblings, our neighbors, our schoolmates, whatever. But then as we get bigger, the third house is like our crew. For some people, it represents a small business, self-employment, sole proprietorship. It's associated with communication, networking, crowdsourcing, but on a much smaller personal and local level. And so with Pluto moving through your third house, there's going to be a huge focus on the power of words. And for some people, it's going to mean empowering yourself to be self-employed because you don't want to work for somebody else anymore. So you're taking the power back. For some people, it's going to be about surrounding yourself with healthy, intelligent, open-minded people because you can't take toxic conversation anymore. You're over it, right? There's a few different ways it can play out, but basically Pluto represents power. The third house is communication and networking and the people closest to us. So those are the basic themes that you're going to be working through. And what happens is when the sun moves into Sagittarius next Friday, on the 21st of November, you are going to feel so uplifted and so encouraged and so revitalized when you're around healthy, open-minded, joyful people that is going to make it so easy to leave behind any toxic or unhealthy connections you have, because the difference is black and white, right? And sometimes we don't know how good things can be until we experience them, and then it's like, I'm never going back, right? And so that's kind of what's happening for you. All the hard work, all the growth, all the introspection, all the healing, everything is finally coming together for you guys. That is just like click, 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 click into place. And then the good feelings that you experience, that becomes motivation enough. So I hope that you enjoyed these horoscopes. I hope they helped. I hope it resonated. Feel free to comment below if you have any thoughts or comments or insight that you want to share. And if you feel so inspired, please like, please share, please subscribe. It helps me expand my reach. It helps more people see these horoscopes. So thank you so much for being here. Mwah! I will see you next time. Bye. Capricorn Sun and Capricorn Rising. Welcome to your horoscopes. You guys have been through the shit, and it's been like 20 years of Pluto moving through your sign. And what happens on November 19th is that Pluto finally moves out of Capricorn and moves into Aquarius. So whether you've been going through an ongoing period of depression, struggle, shadow work, whatever it is, get ready, because it's about to lift. The fog, the clouds, the heaviness is about to lift, and you are about to be empowered in a way that it will have felt like it took you decades to get here, but it's going to be so worth celebrating. It's very exciting. The best part is just that the pressure's off. The ways in which you felt burdened, weighed down, struggling through some muck, for that to be released is priceless, infinitely priceless. Now, Venus moves into your sign on Monday, which means that not only is the fog lifting, but taking its place is profound peace and self-love. Now, Venus only moves through Capricorn for just a couple of weeks, but during that time, you can experience so many profound realizations, so much healing, so much peace, so much growth. It's going to really make a huge difference. And I would strongly encourage you to make note of what you're going through. Make notes of everything that you've learned, how it feels like everything led to this. like everything led up to this, and to be able to lock in what you've learned is going to be a gift to yourself a couple of decades later, when Pluto moves out of Aquarius. So basically this love, this sweetness that Venus is bringing to your sign for the next few weeks, soak it up. Please put it in your back pocket, put it in your heart, put it in your soul, and save it for later. You really need it. It's been a hard go. And as this week kind of gets rolling, the other thing that's happening is that Mercury forms a square to Saturn. Now, Saturn is your planetary ruler. Mercury is what we think, what we say, what we imagine. And so that means that for the collective, we're going to have a very like precise focus on details kind of influence at the beginning of this week. You guys are going to actually benefit the most. A lot of people might go through depression or fleeting darkness or heavy thoughts like that. But because you're a Capricorn, it's going to be a boost. It's going to have the opposite effect. You're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel like you can think crystal clear. The ideas are going to come, the problem solving, all of it. It's just going to be like, and you're going to feel like you're just rocking the socks off of this week. As the week progresses, then on Friday, we have a full moon. That's going to be a really tricky energy. Saturn goes direct at the exact same time as the full moon. So again, for you guys, it's going to be a really positive influence, but you're going to be looking around and being like, WTF is up with people? Because the full moon is going to be activating some deep primal feelings, questions around whether or not people's needs are getting met and whether or not that's even a possibility moving forwards. The energy around Friday's full moon could possibly mean that there's riots, protests, violence, explosions, because at the exact same time, Mars is opposite Pluto, which is taking action to empower ourselves when we feel disempowered. I can't say this enough. Please avoid toxic, dangerous people. Please avoid dangerous situations. Do not poke the bear. Do not get in fights with anybody on or around Friday's full moon. It just has such a volatile energy with it. Please, I urge caution. But outside of that, you guys are set up to be experiencing one heck of a rockin' week. Like I said, I don't see you guys going through that volatility. I see you guys witnessing it either in your home with children losing their shit, or partners acting like children, or witnessing it in your community or the world around you. And again, you're going to be like, WTF is going on with people? I feel great. But you guys are going to be the outliers over the next couple of weeks. So soak it up. Have fun. And like I said, don't engage with crazy stuff. Now is not the time. Moving into next week, Mercury forms an opposition to Jupiter. So again, Mercury is what we think and what we say and what we imagine. And in an opposition to Jupiter, it's actually quite inspiring. It's optimistic, it's hopeful, it's uplifting. And for you guys, it's going to activate your 12th and 6th houses. So there's a huge possibility for you guys as we begin the second week around November 18th, that you're going to be really inspired to take a dream and make it reality. You're going to be really inspired to deal with some sort of maybe psychological burden and work towards healing. Maybe you want to bring some sort of a secret out into the open so that it's not weighing on you. But basically, it's going to be relieving, it's going to be uplifting, and the whole idea is to allow these clouds to pass away. Everything that's been so heavy in your life, in your heart, in your soul, in your mind, it's time to problem solve, it's time to let it go, and it's time to move on, onwards and upwards. And then Pluto moves into Aquarius on November 19th. So that's the moment where the clouds really are lifting for you guys. The ways in which you felt like there was just insurmountable pressure or obstacles to be overcome or heavy energy. Like, you guys have been through the shits for like 2 decades. Cause for celebration. Huge cause for celebration. And I think that's why your energy this week is going to be like, I'm doing great. You're just going to feel it coming. You're going to be ready to release, and you're going to be ready to move on. Yeah, and then the sun moves into Sagittarius on the 21st. So there's going to be a light shining on maybe the dark corners of your mind, but it's going to open up your dream space. You're going to have some really good dreams. It's going to help you be more inspired, and it's going to help you be more hopeful about the ideas that you have. One of the things that you guys struggle with is that you're so practical and so realistic that sometimes when you have a dream come through, you're like, well, that's stupid or that's silly. You're a little bit too harsh with yourself. Sometimes you're harsh in the same way with other people, but you're definitely more harsh with yourself. And there are a lot of ways in which you stop yourself before you even get a foot out the door. The idea is that with the sun moving into Sagittarius and Venus moving into your sign, the idea is that you'll be more able to be gentle with yourself. Instead of thinking, oh, I can't do that because I'm not going to be perfect, you're going to think, let's just do it because it'll be fun. I don't care if I'm perfect or not. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to be less harsh, less hard on yourself, and really just kind of approaching everything in your life with more love, more compassion, more gentleness. So I hope you guys have an amazing week. Your horoscopes were easy. There's like nothing big. It's about things clicking into place. It's about feeling relieved, and the clouds are lifting and the sun's coming out. So I hope you have a good one. Definitely go check out the beginning of the video where I give a really cool general overview and I talk about Pluto and Aquarius over the last couple thousand years. And yeah, have an amazing couple weeks. If you enjoyed your horoscopes, please feel free to like and share and subscribe. It helps more people see these. That would be amazing if you felt inspired to do so. And if you want to share your comments and your insights, your thoughts below, feel free to comment. Mwah! Thank you for being here. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Aquarius Sun and Aquarius Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. You guys are definitely under the spotlight right now because Pluto moves into your sign on November 19th. And it's been tiptoeing into your sign a few times over the last couple years and then been like, haha, just kidding, and going back into Capricorn. And so any ways in which you started to feel Pluto's influence, it's really going to get locked in now, and it's going to be in your sign for 20 years. Basically, Pluto is power and control, but in order to claim our own power, in order to avoid being controlled by others, the key to all of that is shadow work. If you are coming to the table already working on shadow work, then Pluto moving into your sign over the next 2 decades is going to be affirming. It's going to be strengthening. It's going to help you carry on the momentum that you already had started. But if you're coming to the table without working on shadow work at all, if you've been avoiding your feelings, if you've been avoiding your shadow, your problems, and just kind of going, la, 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 it's fine, you're going to have the hardest time with this transit. Because Pluto wants to empower you, but there's no way through except for straight through. So do not run from your feelings. Do not run from your shadow. The experience will be profoundly life-changing, but the more you resist, the harder it will be, is basically the advice that I have. Let's start with Venus. Venus is sweet. Venus is lovely. Venus brings love and abundance and comfort, and Venus is moving into your 12th house. It is currently working through Sagittarius this weekend, and then on Monday it moves into Capricorn. So there is going to be this influence just before Pluto moves into your sign of Venus moving into your 12th house. Now, Venus brings sweetness. It softens everything that it touches. And your 12th house is everything that is hidden in your mind. Could be secrets, could be dreams, it could be intuition, but it's also skeletons in the closet. It's also the things that we don't want to deal with. It's also the deep, darkest corners of our psyche. And the ways in which maybe we're broken and we just go, it's fine. So like I said, the more willing you are to work through therapy, work through philosophy, spirituality, and simply just kind of understand why you are the way you are, whether it be crisis or trauma or family of origin. Basically, the whole thing is that while Pluto is moving through your sign over the next 2 decades, you cannot hide from yourself. And if you try to hide from yourself, you're just making things harder. So with Venus moving into your 12th house on Monday, it is beautiful because it's like a really lovely, sweet person coming in first and being like, let's make sure to set you up with pillows. Let's put on some soft music. Let's make sure you're coming to the table with self-love. Because shit's about to get serious. Just kidding, kind of. Venus moving into your 12th house is going to give you an opportunity to start doing some of this emotional self-analysis or psychological, spiritual, philosophical work in a way that is gentle and loving and compassionate, because none of us are ever achieve health and success by beating ourselves up. It just doesn't work that way. Part of Pluto's transit is going to be showing you why you beat yourself up. Was it a parent? Was it a caregiver? Was it a partner that made you feel like you weren't good enough? Even after people are done hurting us, sometimes we continue doing their work for them. Our abusers live in our head. Our parents become our inner dialogue. So there's a lot of really cool, interesting work being done in modern times, carrying the work of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung when it comes to emotional and psychological self-analysis. And one of the ways that people have started referring to it in modern times is parts work. And basically figuring out what the heck is happening inside of your head. Look at it like a big dining room table. Who's sitting at your table? Is there a voice of a partner, voice of a parent? You know what I mean? Like, who are all the parts inside of your head? Because if you can name them, if you can understand them, if you can figure out why they're there, that is the beginning of solving all of the things that you circle around, right? So Venus sets the table with love, with candles, with flowers, and says, listen, darling, we got to sit down and talk about some stuff, right? And then as we lead up to Friday's full moon, which is going to be volatile and potentially explosive or implosive, you may come to realize that the people you're surrounded by are either supporting the values that you have or challenging the values that you have. If you do not feel valued by the people in your life, it is going to become glaringly obvious. And rather than accepting maltreatment from others, you're going to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. Why do I put up with this? And then you're going to think about your family of origin. Then you're going to think about partners that made you feel like you have to tolerate things. You know what I mean? So in little ways, you're going to be shown the truth. And the more that you are willing to hold space for the truth and love yourself enough to see the other side, the easier that this process will be. But like I said, it's just about helping you be your authentic self. It's just about removing the clutter and removing the cobwebs so that you can love yourself. And that is your highest path by all means. The full moon in Taurus on Friday, November 15th happens at the exact same time as Saturn starts to move direct. You're going to find that money comes easier. You're going to find that access to resources and opportunities to connect with trustworthy people are going to start opening up. If you're a creature of habit and keep going back to toxic relationships, that would be the opposite of progress, right? What you want to do is you want to start recognizing your self-worth and integrating that in a way that you see it manifested and reflected in your everyday life. And the full moon on Friday is going to be polarizing these two different sides of you. The side of you that your at-home self, where you're like your true self, and then your out in public self, where you're like customer service face or whatever it is. And this full moon is going to be really not only polarizing that, but bringing up the question, are you happy? Do you feel safe? Do you feel loved? Do you feel respected and honored and appreciated? And if your answer to any of those things is no, what can you do as far as working from a place of self-love to say, I deserve better? And not in a way that overpowers or takes down anybody else, but just in a way that says, thank you, bye, and leaves the room, right? So yeah, definitely a common theme here. The most important thing is validate your feelings. The most important thing is to say, if I feel this feeling, I have a reason. And it might not just be based on what's happening in front of me. It might be based on a lifetime of feeling this feeling or experiencing these experiences. The roots go deep, and the more willing you are to go deep, the more clarity you will be able to find. If you only look at the surface, if you only argue with people in this immediate space and you don't go deep, you're just going to keep circling around the same problems without ever finding the solution. And then what happens moving into next week is by November 18th, we pass the full moon, we pass this crisis traumatic energy, and we move back into hope. We move back into positivity and spontaneity and joy and levity and all these things. So definitely, if you avoid difficult people and unsafe situations on or around Friday, you're going to be really glad that you did. And then the week after, starting on the 18th, it's going to be easier for you to pick and choose situations, context, opportunities in which your values are reflected, in which people are reflecting back your worthiness. And not just because you do something for them, but because you're a unique spirit living your life with freedom of expression, and you know what I mean? So the more that you can let your own unique individual light shine, the more that you can cultivate a life in which people love you for who you are and respect you for who you are. It's not about playing a role. So if up until this point you've been playing a role, hoping that you find the love or acceptance or success that you're looking for, then it's going to be harder for you to find authenticity. But if you're already on a path of authenticity, this is going to be breakthroughs and affirming and energizing in a really cool way. So yeah, love yourself unconditionally. Love is the only truth, and fear is an illusion. And if people in your life cultivate fear, either fear of being safe or like fear of being yourself, then you're surrounded by the wrong people. And it's going to become crystal clear over the next couple weeks. Mwah! Thank you for being here. I hope that you enjoyed your horoscopes. I hope it resonated. If you have any comments, thoughts, or insights you'd like to share, please feel free to comment below. And if you felt so inspired to like this video, to share it, or to subscribe to my channel, I would be ever so grateful. It helps me expand my reach. It helps more people be able to see these videos. And honestly, my hope is that if you liked it and you felt like sharing it, it's coming from a place of like, heck yeah, this felt helpful, right? Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you so much. Good luck out there, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye. Pisces Sun and Pisces Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. It's going to be a wild ride. It already has been a wild ride. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of surprises. There's a lot of stuff going on. Let's start with Venus. Venus is lovely. Venus is sweet. Venus brings softness to all that it touches. And this weekend, Venus is moving through the last degrees of Sagittarius. Excuse me. I was just drinking an iced tea. Oh my goodness. Venus is moving out of your 10th house. So while Venus is in Sagittarius, which it finishes this weekend, it's been moving through your 10th house. It's been helping you feel better about the plans that you're making for the future, whether they be personal goals like buying a house, or, you know what I mean? Or professional goals like advancing in your career, achieving some sort of status or title. Venus moving through your 10th house has been money, promotions, recognition, acceptance, really feeling like things are coming together for you in a way that is either sustainable or focused on the future. You know what I mean? So now what's happening is Venus is moving into Capricorn starting Monday. And so it's going to move out of your 10th house, which is, the 10th house is very focused on, if I put energy in, I got to get something out of it, right? So it is very practical. It is very transactional, right? So that's why there's a huge focus on like career, for example. But when it moves into Capricorn, it's going to activate your 11th house. And what's fun about that is that the 11th house is ruled by Aquarius. It's about art, music, social causes like helping out the homeless, or helping out at a food bank, or simply advocating for the underdog, humanitarian efforts. That's the word I was looking for. So what's really cool about Venus moving out of your 10th house is that there's a far less focus on if I do this, will it bring me money or will it bring me success? Now you're going to be thinking, if I do this, will it be fun? Way better, right? So while Venus spends a couple of weeks moving through your 11th house, prepare to be inspired. Prepare to have the muses inspire you to write a book, sing a song, dance like nobody's watching, you know what I mean? And that's really your kind of vibe for sure. So that's super cool. And so even though Venus is moving into heavy and serious Capricorn, it's going to be a beautiful balance for you, because in the part of your chart that represents art and music and transcendence and living a meaningful life, then it's like you guys are going to be able to connect the dots. I want to live a meaningful life. Now I can figure out how to do that in reality instead of having it just be a dream while I work a dead-end job. Right? So it's about kind of connecting the dots or bridging two worlds, right? Bringing dreams into reality, or bringing a soul mission into some sort of practical steps moving forwards, right? But it's a beautiful combination. So that's how we start the week. And for you guys, it's looking really, really positive. And then Friday the 15th of November, we have a full moon. And the full moon is created by the sun and the moon being at opposite points in our zodiac, in our solar system. The sun is in Scorpio still, and the moon is going to be in Taurus, and it's going to be conjunct Uranus. So the moon represents our emotions, and when it is conjunct Uranus, which is change, upheaval, it can also be crisis, it can be trauma, it can be breakthroughs, but it also can be breakdowns or breakups. Depending on the context, it can be explosions or implosions. And to further complicate things, at the exact same time as this volatile full moon, Mars and Pluto are opposite each other. So in the collective, there is this really strong primal urge to take action in a way that empowers us. Some people have it all wrong. Some people think that in order to be empowered, they have to disempower somebody else. That's a huge part of why the world is the way it is. People have things completely backwards. But if we're able to look at this, then we are able to look at this from a realistic, educated, open-minded perspective. True power is gentle. True power is compassion. True power is wisdom. It is not violence. And obviously I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys get it. But this full moon is going to be activating your 9th and your 3rd houses. You're going to feel as though there's a lot of crazy stuff happening. You could experience that feeling as feeling like, okay, there's crazy stuff happening around me. But what you might experience is on a more personal level, feeling like your headspace is in a really dark place. As a deeply compassionate and empathetic person, as a Pisces sun or Pisces rising, the weight of the world is often too heavy to bear. You have a very soft, beautiful heart. And to witness suffering, to witness brutality, to witness corruption, you can sometimes experience that as a physical ache. Heartbreak, despair, and things like that, because you have a way of kind of taking the sorrows of the world and holding it so close to yourself that sometimes you forget to keep a healthy boundary, allowing you to observe but not absorb. And what we see on Friday for you guys is a huge possibility that boundary is going to be blurred. It happens sometimes. But if your headspace becomes really dark, then I would love to encourage you, please talk about your feelings. If you don't feel like you have a person to talk to, you can talk to your pets, you can talk to God, you can talk to the fairies, whatever it is. You can write things out. Because with the moon, the full moon being in your 3rd house, there's a huge emphasis on get it off of your chest. Either talk about it or write about it, or maybe sing or dance about it. But the 3rd house is communication, and it's also about our circle of friends, the people that are closest to us. So whatever emotional experience you have, please get it out of your body. Please get it off of your chest. Sometimes I'll go driving down the highway and I will just go, And it was really funny to find out that one of my best friends does that too. Because that way I'm not going to bother my neighbors. I'm not going to freak out the kids or anything. And I can get that off of my chest in a way that is safe and appropriate and very healthy, right? Having a screaming pillow will allow you to do that in the safety of your own home, right? But the build up to this full moon is no joke. So practice your healthiest coping mechanisms. Remember that depression lies to you. Depression's a horrible, horrible liar, and it will say yucky, yucky things about yourself, about your life, about your choices and your friends and your partners. Don't believe a word that your depression says. Tell it to F off, and trust that this too shall pass. This is going to be one of those times where you need to take advantage of all your healthiest coping mechanisms. You need to call a friend, ask for help, scream it out, whatever it is. You know what I mean? You've been working hard on establishing those healthy coping mechanisms as it is. I just want you to know beforehand, before it gets to like red light status, have a plan in place, because Friday's energy is going to be really hard on your heart and it's going to weigh heavy on your soul. You need to get it off. And please remember to have healthy boundaries. Observe, but don't absorb, okay? Sometimes it's hard knowing that we can't save everyone. And that's the thing. You want to be the knight in shining armor to everybody, and sometimes it's not possible. And sometimes that realization is really heartbreaking, right? To witness suffering in the world is so profoundly heartbreaking. So yeah, okay. Saturn moves direct at the same time as the full moon, and Saturn is in your sign. So there's something new as far as your ability to stay grounded, to stay sorted, to be professional. There's something new about your ability to deal with these kind of massive, overwhelming emotions and experiences. So definitely there's a sign that not only you've got the tools in your toolbox, right? So this is a great time to practice everything that you've been working on. And then after the full moon, everything changes. It's going to be really intense Friday, Saturday-ish, right? But by the time we get to Monday, November 18th, 19th, that kind of time, we have a much more positive, uplifting, hopeful influence. Mercury is going to form an opposition to Jupiter. And there's going to be a lightheartedness to your heart, to your emotions, to anything that you've been dealing with. And you're going to be thinking about, hey, this coping mechanism worked. Or, hey, I could turn this crazy experience into a book. Or whatever it is, right? But I see you getting through this. It's going to be hard, but you're going to get through it. And then Monday, Tuesday, you're going to be like, whew, glad that's over. And whew, glad I had all those coping mechanisms, right? And then Pluto moves into Aquarius for good this time, and it's going to be there for 20 years. On November 19th, it enters Aquarius. For you guys, it's your 12th house. So when it comes to your dream space, your imagination, skeletons in the closet, anything like that, prepare for Pluto to stir up a little bit of dust. But the idea is that Pluto is going to empower you to have a healthy subconscious, to have a healthy dream space, to sleep better, to be more willing to bring your inspiration into reality, to empower yourself in a way that you don't feel odd or out of place in a yucky way, that you're like, heck yeah, I'm a unique person and I love it. And I'm going to be more authentically me. So it'll be really interesting for sure. And then the sun moves into Sagittarius on November 21st. So there will be a general karmic theme on your career, your plans for the future, and all that you intend to kind of solidify in your life. So I hope you liked your horoscopes. I hope that they resonated. I hope that they were helpful. Good luck out there. Protect your peace and protect your soft heart, okay? Mwah. Thank you for being here. If you have any comments or thoughts you want to share, feel free to leave them below in the comment box. And I would love it if you shared this video. It helps me expand my reach. If you found it helpful, then absolutely other people will. So if you feel so inspired, like and subscribe and share and all that good stuff, right? Thank you. Mwah. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye.